Chapter 4073. Du Fan and Chi Kong looked in the direction of the middle-aged man's shout, only to see a black-robed man with a head full of white hair standing under a tree below. However, he had a childish face that did not match his white hair, and the gloomy aura around him was extremely strong. Chi Kong did not give that person a chance to escape. With a strike of the sharp sword in his hand, the long sword flew out like an arrow towards the middle-aged man at a speed that was too fast for one's ears to cover. The sharp sword Chi carried with it a murderous aura as it came from behind. The middle-aged man only felt a chill on his back, and his heart jumped. He instinctively turned around to look, only to see the long sword coming towards him. The powerful aura that the sharp sword carried with it caused him to be unable to move even if he wanted to. He could only watch as the sword flew towards his forehead. Shio! A sharp gust of wind pierced through the air, and the swishing sound made one's heart tremble. Just as the sword was about a meter away from the middle-aged man, the figure of the white-haired man below shot out like a flash of light, instantly appearing in mid-air. A strong air current shot out from the white-haired man's body, and the air current that was visible to the naked eye blocked Chi Kang's flying sword. The air blade on the sharp sword collided with the air current released by the white-haired man, and the fight between the two air currents caused the long sword to be unable to get any closer. However, it did not retreat even half a centimeter. The hands of the originally gloomy white-haired man that were blocking in front of his body trembled slightly. When the air current that he had gathered in his hands was unable to repel the long sword, his expression changed. As the surrounding air currents surged, the black robes on his body fluttered loudly. His white hair also fluttered messily in the air, and a trace of cold sweat gradually seeped out from his forehead. No one knew that at this moment, his heart was filled with fear. He did not expect that the people under the command of the ghost, Dr. Fengjiu, would be so strong, so powerful. Even with his strength, it was still difficult for him to resist. At this moment, he finally deeply understood why the name of the ghost, Dr. Fengjiu, had spread throughout the world. Whenever this name was mentioned, people would feel reverence in their hearts. The middle-aged man was protected behind him, so he didn't see his master break out in cold sweat. His master's expression changed drastically. He was still laughing behind them. Let's see how you can still be so arrogant. Once my master makes his move, he will definitely make it, so that you will not be able to return. Ha ha ha! Puffed. Before he could finish his laughter, he was struck by an air current. A mouthful of blood gushed out from his throat, and his entire body fell from the air. Bang! He let out a blood-curdling scream as his body smashed into the ground below, sending gravel flying in all directions and filling the air with dust and smoke. He coughed a few times and tried to sit up, but when he moved, the bones in his body seemed to have loosened. He couldn't stand up for a long time and could only lie on the ground, panting heavily. Pooh! At this moment, the white-haired man in the air was also sent flying by the sword Chi. The sharp sword pierced through his body, and blood splattered from the sky. He lost his balance and fell backwards. Fresh blood seeped out from his wound, soaking his black robes, but no one could see it. Since you're not a match for a divine king, then you're not a match for us, Chi Kong said in a low voice. His gaze contained a powerful pressure as he looked at the white-haired man. Chapter 4074. The white-haired man wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and glanced at the hole in his shoulder. His expression grew even colder. No one noticed that his hand was trembling under his sleeve. The sword had pierced through his shoulder and injured the veins in his arm. His hand could not muster any strength and was even trembling slightly. This was only one of the ghost doctor's subordinates, and not even the ghost doctor Fengjiu himself. If the ghost Dr. Fengjiu were to come here personally, then his heart was filled with regret at the thought of this. If they had known earlier, they would have made their move earlier. No matter what method they had to use, they would have found out what they wanted from the Yi family as soon as possible. Now that they had missed their chance, they would never be able to get their hands on that item. If they were to continue fighting, they might even lose their lives. His heart pounded at the thought of this, and he scanned his surroundings. If they could not protect this valley, they would have no choice but to abandon it. Trying to escape? Du Fan, who had been observing him, raised his brows and laughed icily. He gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand and said, "Both of us are here. If we allow you to escape, we don't need to show our faces anymore." Just then, Bai Qingsheng had escorted the Yi family couple to a spot not too far away. When she saw the middle-aged man lying motionless on the ground, Madame Ye's eyes filled with hatred and murderous intent. "It's him! It's him!" It was this person who had skinned her husband's face right in front of her back then. Every time she recalled that cruel and bloody scene, her heart felt as if it had been pierced by a knife. Bai Qingsheng was slightly shaken. Her gaze fell upon the man, and before she could react, she saw Madame Yi supporting Father Yi as they quickly walked forward. After helping him to sit down, Madame Yi spat hatefully. "It's him. He was the one who had skinned your face all those years ago. I wanted to have a taste of this bone-piercing pain that's worse than death." She took out a dagger from somewhere, but she didn't slash at his face. Instead, she used the dagger to stab the person lying on the ground in his dantian. Ah! A shrill cry of agony filled the air. The man's body arched from the intense pain. Just as he was about to slap her with his hand, he was hit by a blast of air from Bai Qingsheng and fell to the ground again. Someone come quickly. Men!" He lay on the ground and shouted, calling for the surrounding cultivators to come forward. Unexpectedly, a few cultivators mustered up their courage and wanted to step forward. However, the moment they stepped forward, they were killed by Bai Qingsheng's sword energy. There were many people around, but no one dared to step forward. These people were not people who valued friendship and righteousness. At the critical moment of life and death, they only cared about themselves. Why would they use their own lives to exchange for the survival of others? Thus, when they saw that they were simply no match for their opponent, they gave up on the person on the ground. "Ha ha 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 ha! You also have this day, you also have this day." Yimu laughed crazily. The dagger in her hand stabbed again. With a swoosh, it pierced into his wrist. With one stab, the wrist was almost cut off. Ah! A sharp and despairing scream rang out once again, echoing in the air. His body was twitching, his face was as pale as paper, and his lower body was already covered in blood. Chapter 4075. Bai Qingsheng watched from the side. With her around, none of the surrounding cultivators dared to step forward. All of them shuddered at the sight of the bloody scene. They had killed many people before, but this was the first time a person was killed by 1,000 cuts. Furthermore, the scene of his face being skinned was bloody and cruel. Some of them could not help but think of the things that the person on the ground had done to others in the past. As the saying goes, every dog has its day. He had treated others so cruelly and treated them like fish on a chopping board. Now, he was being treated the same way and experiencing the same cruelty that others had experienced. For a time, the cultivators who saw this scene felt a chill run down their spines. At the same time, they also felt extremely complicated. The screams had become weak and fearful. The middle-aged man trembled on the ground. His body twitched from every cut. The pain made him hover between life and death. After fainting, he would be woken up by the pain. The torture repeated over and over again, making him suffer a fate worse than death. Father Yi sat back and watched this scene. Tears welled up in his eyes. The white-haired man glanced down and narrowed his eyes. He looked at Du Fan and Qi Kong, who were preventing him from escaping. He gritted his teeth. He could only fight again. Right now, he could only fight with all his strength in exchange for a chance to survive. Seeing the spiritual energy on the man's body exploding and attacking them, Du Fan and Qi Kong looked at each other. Du Fan said, "There's no use in keeping this person alive. Let's send him on his way." "Okay," Qi Kong replied. In the next moment, he and Du Fan attacked together. As they released a powerful aura, the aura that soared into the sky and attacked the white-haired man with killing intent. In the aura visible to the naked eye, two figures flashed out like lightning. The thunderous attacks came from two different directions. When the white-haired man saw the two auras coming towards him, he wanted to dodge. However, he was suppressed by the two powerful auras, causing his body to freeze and be unable to move. It was also at that moment that two loud bangs of impact landed on the white-haired man's body at a speed that was too fast for one to cover their ears. In an instant, they broke through his defenses and exploded on his body. Bang, bang. Two loud noises were heard, and blood splashed out. That person screamed, but his scream was covered by the sound of the explosion. The people below only saw two huge bloody holes in the body of that person in the air. His whole body was struck down from the air and heavily smashed on the ground below. Boom! A loud sound rang out as he crashed into the ground. A powerful shock wave spread out in all directions. The surrounding cultivators all stared in shock, their eyes filled with fear. It was also at this moment that someone saw that the situation was not good. When he wanted to escape, he found that his legs were weak and his body was trembling uncontrollably. He thought that he was frightened by this scene, so he took a deep breath to calm himself down. However, when he tried to circulate the aura in his body, he found that he could not circulate the spiritual energy in his body. Chapter 4076. Because of this sound, someone tried to raise his chi, and his expression changed drastically. Me too. I can't raise my spiritual chi. What's going on? What's going on? Hiss. My legs are so weak. It's as if all the strength in my body has been sucked out. Are we drugged? For a moment, panicked and aghast voices filled with fear and helplessness rang out. The cultivators who were originally standing fell to the ground one after another, unable to muster the slightest bit of strength in their bodies. There were also people who looked at the cultivators who had fallen to the ground in shock and asked, "What's going on? What's wrong with all of you?" Those who were still standing tried to raise their spiritual chi and realized that there was nothing wrong with them. Seeing them in such a state, they did not dare to be careless. They checked again and finally confirmed that those who were still standing were all fine. Is this tendon-weakening powder? No. It's impossible that tendon-weakening powder can't raise our spiritual chi. It's impossible that we don't know that we've been drugged. What is this? How can this be? Someone fell to the ground and muttered, his face as pale as a sheet. Of course, I want none of you to escape. As Bai Ching-chung spoke, she pointed the long sword in her hand diagonally to the ground. Her spiritual chi surged, and the sword energy swept out in all directions. It was so fast, and the sword energy was so sharp that none of the cultivators could escape before they died under her sword. Hiss. For a moment, screams and cries filled the air, and the thick smell of blood permeated the air. On the ground, corpses were lying on the ground, and some of them still had fear and unwillingness on their faces even when they died. Oh no! Run! Some of the cultivators who could still run took to their heels, tried to escape from this place that was filled with the aura of death. However, Bai Ching-ching's pursuit was swift and ruthless. The sharp sword in her hand shot out sword chi that attacked from all directions. The sword's shadow flashed through the air like a ray of light. Wherever it passed, screams of agony could be heard. There were more and more corpses on the ground, and the aura of death became more and more intense. The valley was filled with blood and corpses. Whether they could escape or not, they could not escape death in the end. On the other side, Du Fan and Chi Kong descended from the sky. Du Fan looked at the dying white-haired man on the ground and shook his head. He gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand and said, "Look at you of all people. Why did you have to provoke him? Why did you have to provoke someone who is related to us?" The white-haired man on the ground had blood flowing out of his mouth. His hands moved as he struggled to get up, but he didn't have the strength to do so. He could only lie on the ground and look at the two people standing in front of him, looking at his miserable state. However, it's your honor to die in our hands. As Du Fan spoke, he waved the fan in his hand and was about to kill the white-haired man. At this moment, the white-haired man lying on the ground had a resolute and ruthless look in his eyes. The spiritual energy in his body suddenly surged. In the blink of an eye, it exploded with a loud bang. Quick dodge! Du Fan's expression changed as he cried out in alarm. At the same time, he quickly pulled Chi Kong back and fell to the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, a powerful airflow suddenly exploded, and blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Everything within 10 meters was affected by the powerful airflow and was destroyed into ashes. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 4077. Don't move. Dufan and Chi Kong were sprawled on the ground. Dust and smoke filled the air around them, but before it could disperse, they heard two vicious shouts. The two of them were startled. After they got up, Dufan fanned himself with the fan in his hand. A gust of wind blew away the dust and smoke in front of them. The scene that greeted them caused their expressions to darken. They saw that about 10 meters away, Yi Feifei's parents were being held hostage by two cultivators from the valley. Two sharp swords were held against their necks, causing them to frown. Come over here. Come over here. Ha ha ha. With these two in our hands, they won't dare to do anything to us. The cultivator holding Yi Feifei's mother hostage shouted and laughed loudly. He shouted for those who were not drugged to quickly gather around the two of them. This way, they would have more protection around them. With these two hostages in their hands, they did not believe that they would not be able to leave this place alive. Bai Qingcheng, who was in the midst of killing the cultivators, heard the voice. Her heart skipped a beat, and she cursed in her heart. She quickly turned around and saw Yi Feifei's parents being held hostage. The remaining 10 or so cultivators who managed to escape quickly gathered around them and formed a defensive perimeter around them. Seeing that Yi Feifei and Yi Feifei were calmly allowing themselves to be held hostage, her heart could not help but sink. The two of them had no intention of living to begin with. Now it was even more so. Even if they were not being held hostage by these people, they would probably kill themselves here in the end. But now, she could not help but recall what Yi Feifei's mother had said earlier. The white-haired man's body exploded and died. Their enemies died one by one in front of them. Their revenge could be considered complete. If they were to drag the remaining cultivators down with them, they would really have to drag a few of them down with them. She moved her lips. She wanted to say something, but she did not know what to say. Yi Feifei's mother looked at Bai Qingcheng from afar and gave her a beautiful smile. Her eyes seemed to be saying something silently. She looked deeply at Bai Qingcheng, then shifted her gaze to her husband. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. This is bad. They want to... Before Dufan could finish his words, two loud bangs were heard. A powerful airflow rose into the sky and spread out in all directions. The sound of rocks rolling down accompanied by screams could be heard. After a while, everything returned to normal. In the valley, after the rumbling echoes dissipated, it became very quiet, as if there was no one in the entire valley. Dufan and Chi Kong watched this scene silently with pursed lips. Bai Qingcheng looked at the scene with an indescribable feeling in her heart. She took a deep breath and paused for a moment before she stepped forward. Their bodies exploded, leaving nothing behind. A pile of flesh and blood scattered everywhere. It was impossible to tell who was who. I wanted to bring them back, but in the end I couldn't bring them back, Dufan sighed softly. He felt an indescribable regret. Bai Qingcheng looked at them and said, they wanted to die. Even if they didn't drag those people down with them, they would do it in some other way. She paused for a moment before she continued. Actually, perhaps this is the best outcome for them. Chi Kong looked around the valley and said in a low voice, let's search again. See if there are any survivors. Chapter 4078. The three of them searched the valley. After confirming that there were no survivors, they cleared out all the valuables in the valley. Finally, they set the place on fire and left under the cover of the night to report back to their master. At the same time, in Fengjiu's residence, Yi Feifei was feeling uneasy. She paced back and forth in the courtyard restlessly. When she couldn't stand it any longer, she walked outside. She wanted to walk around the residence or go to the front to talk to Leng Shuang and the others. Unexpectedly, she didn't run into Leng Shuang. Instead, she ran into Leng Hua and Hui Lang, who had just returned to the residence. Miss Yi. Leng Hua greeted her with a smile when he saw her. Young Master Leng, is your sister in your master's courtyard? Yi Feifei asked. Because of the uneasiness in her heart, her hands kept tugging at the corners of her clothes. When Leng Hua saw this, he asked gently, why are you looking for my sister? Seeing that she wanted to speak but stopped, Lung Hua said gently, "My sister asked the master to help take care of the little master. If you want to know what happened in the Yi family, I can tell you." Hui Lang and the others looked at Yi Fei. After thinking for a while, they remembered that she was the woman they met when they entered the city. Hearing this, Yi Fei looked up at him and asked, "How's my family?" The matter has been blown out of proportion. Qing Cheng was taken away and Du Fan is already chasing after her, Lung Hua said. Before he could finish, Hui Lang interrupted. "We ran into Du Fan on our way back. Qi Kong also went with him. I think they'll be back soon." Yi Fei looked at him and thanked him. She bowed to them and walked back. After seeing her leave, Lung Hua and the others went to the main courtyard to report the matter to Feng Jiu and Xianyuan Mose. In the main courtyard, Feng Jiu looked at them and said, "Got it. You've all had a hard time coming back. Go and rest first." "Yes," they replied and left. The next day, when it was close to noon, Du Fan, Qi Kong, and Bai Qingcheng quietly returned to the residence. "Master, Yama Lord." The three of them bowed and called out respectfully. Xianyuan Mose was sitting by the stone table in the courtyard, drinking tea. Feng Jiu was trimming the flowers and plants. Seeing them return, he asked, "How did it go? Is everything settled?" "Master, Qi Kong and I followed them to a valley and rescued Qingcheng and the others. Yi Fei's parents were imprisoned there. Du Fan told them the whole story and then retreated to the side." Hearing this, Feng Jiu couldn't help but sigh softly. The result was unexpected. The people who were thought to be dead were still alive and living a life worse than death. Now, when they went to save them, they chose to die. Bai Qingcheng stepped forward and said, "Master, Yi Fei's parents told me something and asked me to report it to you." Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows. The thing they were guarding was the ancient red lotus, which is now in Yi Fei's hands. Mother Yi said that she didn't want such an ancient treasure to bring trouble to her daughter, so she said that she wanted to give the ancient red lotus to you. She only asked that you take care of Yi Fei. Hearing this, Feng Jiu was slightly surprised and said, "The ancient red lotus? Is this true?" There had been no news about the ancient red lotus. How did it end up in Yi Fei's hands? "It's true. Mother Yi even wrote a blood letter to give to Yi Fei. She only asked for death after arranging everything." Bai Qingcheng took out the blood letter and handed it forward. Chapter 4079. "Yes," Bai Qingcheng replied. She bowed and retreated. After they left, Feng Jiu looked at Xianyuan Mose and said, "I didn't expect there to be news of the ancient red lotus like this." Xianyuan Mose pondered for a moment and said, "The ancient red lotus had been in their hands for so long, but they didn't manage to inherit the ancient red lotus's power. I'm thinking, what if it's the same in our hands?" Feng Jiu was stunned and said, "That shouldn't be the case, right?" Xianyuan Mose didn't say anything. He just kept quiet. No one knew what he was thinking. After Bai Qingcheng left the main courtyard, she went to Yi Fei's place. The moment she entered the courtyard, she saw Yi Fei walking quickly towards her. "You're back." Yi Fei looked at Bai Qingcheng. She had a lot of questions, but she didn't know how to ask them. Her heart was in her throat. She was afraid that she would hear bad news. She was afraid that the hope in her heart would be shattered. Bai Qingcheng looked at her and said, "You just came back. Have a seat. I have something to tell you." Bai Qingcheng said, and gestured for her to sit down. Yi Fei came to the table in the courtyard and sat down. She looked at Bai Qingcheng. After a long while, she took a deep breath and said, "I'm ready. Tell me." Her hands, which were placed on her lap, were clenched tightly and trembling slightly. "After we exposed the matter, the impostor captured me and brought me back to the valley where they were hiding. There, I saw your father and mother." Bai Qingcheng said and paused. Yi Fei was shocked when she heard this. She looked at Bai Qingcheng and asked anxiously, "They're still alive? Are they still alive? Where are they? Did they come back together?" "Don't be anxious. Listen to me first," Bai Qingcheng said and gestured for her not to be anxious. Then she said, "They were captured and imprisoned by those people. They suffered a lot of torture. We gave them elixirs, but the elixirs only made them feel better for a while." She paused, looked at Yi Fei and said, We wanted to bring them back, but because your father's injuries were too severe, there was no chance for him to live. After they saw Du Fan and Shi Kong kill your enemies one by one, your mother and father detonated their inner cores and died together with those people. Yi Fei listened in a daze, and tears fell. Bai Qingchang sighed and sighed. When Bai Qingchang saw this, she sighed inwardly and continued, "Your mother told me about your family's hidden treasure and told me the ins and outs of the matter. She asked me to tell my master everything. She also asked me to tell you to give the ancient red lotus to your master so that she would take care of you in the future. Moreover, she said that your family's calamity was caused by the ancient red lotus. She didn't want you to hide it and cause such a calamity in the future." As she spoke, she took out the letter written in blood. "She personally wrote this for you." Yi Fei took it with trembling hands. The words written in blood on the red cloth were very obvious. Her heart twitched as she looked at the blood. "Is this my mother's blood? Are they all so severely injured? So severely that they can't be saved?" Bai Qingchang sighed in her heart and replied softly, Aside from promising her parents that she wouldn't tell her about the pain and torture they had suffered, she told her everything in full detail. She didn't hold anything back. Chapter 4080. She read each word carefully. Looking at these words, it was as if her mother was by her side, softly telling her to do what she needed to do. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed her hand against her lips and bit her hand to stop herself from crying out loud. Bai Qingchang sat there and did not know how to comfort her. She only said, "They suffered for 3 years. Perhaps death is a form of relief for them. Moreover, the enemies who caused them so much harm are all dead. Their revenge has been avenged." Yi Fei looked at the blood letter in her hand and asked in a choked voice, "How is my family?" "Your second uncle is in charge of the Yi family now. The Yi family head has been deposed, and the old ancestor is in charge. Your second uncle will inherit the position of the Yi family head one day." Du Fan's voice came from outside. The two people in the courtyard looked over and saw him walking in slowly. "I've just received news about the Yi family. Your second uncle has personally sent a letter to ask about your whereabouts. However, we haven't revealed that you're here, and they don't know that we've returned. The Yi family has been reorganized, and its vitality has been greatly damaged. It will take some time for them to recover." Yi Fei remained silent after hearing Du Fan's words. She looked at the blood letter in her hand for a long time and said, "Let me be alone. I won't be alone." Seeing this, Bai Qingcheng and Du Fan looked at each other and walked out, leaving Yi Fei alone in the room. Yi Fei did not move after receiving the blood letter. She did not even step out of the courtyard. Feng Jiu did not say anything. He waited for Yi Fei to think things through and come to him. She was relieved to know that the ancient red lotus was with Yi Fei. At least she did not have to look everywhere for it. She would take a few days to settle the matters here and leave. Early in the morning, she was eating breakfast in the courtyard. Hui Lang could not help but ask, "Madam, what if Yi Fei doesn't give us the ancient red lotus?" That was the ancient red lotus. Was she really willing to give it to their master? Feng Nine was eating porridge with light side dishes. She looked relaxed and at ease as she said, "Although the ancient items are treasures, it's a disaster for ordinary people to obtain them." She finished the porridge in her bowl and put it down. She wiped the corners of her mouth and continued, "You must know that treasures bring trouble. If you don't have enough strength to protect yourself, holding the treasure is equivalent to inviting disaster and waiting for death." She's not a fool. I just want to know why she brought the ancient red lotus. Hearing this, Grey Wolf felt relieved. He didn't care so much as long as Yi Fei gave the ancient red lotus to his wife. "Master, Miss Yi is here." Leng Hua's voice came from outside. Leng Shuang stepped forward to clean up the tableware on the table. "Miss Yi, please," Leng Hua said and gestured for her to enter. Yi Fei looked at the main courtyard and bit her lip. Then she walked in. After entering, she saw that there was only Feng Jiu, a man called Hui Lang, and Leng Shuang. She walked forward and bowed. Chapter 4081. Feng Jiu nodded. "Sure, I'll let Du Fan and Qingqing accompany you. Thank you very much, Yi Feifei said, bowing and leaving first. Leng Shuang, let Du Fan and Qingqing accompany her, Feng Jiu instructed. Yes, Leng Shuang replied and left. After they left, Hui Lang went forward and asked, Master, do you think she hid the ancient red lotus in the Yi family? Feng Jiu smiled. I don't know about that, but it's definitely not with her. Du Fan and Leng Shuang followed Feng Jiu's orders to accompany Yi Feifei back. When they arrived at the Yi family's main gate, Yi Feifei looked up and saw the two words Yi family. This was her home, but her parents weren't here. What's wrong? But Qingqing asked. Nothing. Yi Feifei shook her head and knocked on the door. When the old man who opened the door saw the three people outside, he was stunned for a moment before he quickly opened the door and shouted, Eldest Miss is back. When the members of the Yi family heard this, they all gathered around. When their gazes fell on Yi Feifei's face, they could not help but be stunned. Yi Feifei, who originally had a birthmark on her face, no longer had that birthmark. She was also no longer wearing the flowery butterfly-like clothes. At first glance, it was hard to associate the person in front of them with the original person. The woman in front of him was wearing a light green dress. She was simple, elegant, and beautiful. Although her face was not extremely beautiful, it was exquisite and just right. Coupled with her temperament, it could be said that she was completely different from how she was before. Feifei, a man called out in surprise. Third cousin brother. Yi Feifei nodded slightly and asked, Is second uncle here? Yes, the man replied. He glanced at the three of them and said, Come with me. As he spoke, he led them to the front hall. As soon as Yi Feifei and the other two entered the Yi residence, someone quickly ran to report. The Yi clan's second master strode out from the backyard, and the Yi clan's ancestor also came along. This was because they knew that other than Yi Feifei, Du Fan and the others had also come. In the hall, the three of them sat quietly, drinking tea. Yi family's second master and Yi family's forefather walked in together. When they saw the three people in the hall, Yi family's forefather's attention was on Du Fan and by Qingqing, while the second master was looking at Yi Feifei. Feifei, how are you? Are you hurt? Yi family's second master asked worriedly. Ancestor, second uncle. She stood up and bowed before saying, I'm not injured. You came back just in time. I still have a lot of questions to ask you. Yi family's forefather said. After bowing to Du Fan and by Qingqing, he went to the main seat and sat down. His gaze fell on Yi Feifei. Ancestor, Feifei just came back. There's no need to rush the questions. This child has been taken away. I think she's quite frightened. Let her rest first. Yi family's second master said and looked at the old man in the main seat. This matter is not about her alone. It concerns the entire Yi clan. Naturally, it's better to ask clearly. Yi family's forefather said and raised his hand to signal him to stop talking. Yi Feifei looked at Yi family's forefather and said, I know what you want to ask. She paused and said, The thing that brought disaster to my parents is the ancient red lotus. Chapter 4082. The ancient red lotus? You're talking about the ancient red lotus? You're saying that our Yi family has something like that? His voice trembled in disbelief. The Yi family's second master's expression changed slightly. He seemed to have thought of something, and his face turned serious. Yi Feifei looked at the Yi family's ancestor and said, The ancient red lotus doesn't belong to the Yi family. It belongs to my mother. Nonsense. The Yi family's ancestor's expression changed as if he was afraid that she would say something she shouldn't. He glanced at Du Fan and by Qingqing and said anxiously, What do you mean it doesn't belong to the Yi family? Your mother is a member of the Yi family. How can you say that it doesn't belong to us? If it didn't belong to the Yi family, our family wouldn't have gotten into this mess. As if she had expected to hear this, Yi Feifei's expression remained normal, and she said, After I was captured and brought to that place, I met my parents. They asked me to give the ancient red lotus to their master, Feng Jiu. This time, I came back to see how the family is doing. Secondly, I came to clarify the situation so that you and second uncle won't worry. Your parents are still alive? The Yi family's ancestor asked with a frown. Are your parents still alive? Where are they? Why didn't they come back with you? The Yi family's second master quickly asked. Yi Feifei lowered her head and said, They're dead. Hearing this, the hall fell silent for a while. No one said anything, as if they were not surprised. After all, 3 years had passed. Even if they were still alive, they would probably be half dead. The Yi family's second master thought that it was strange when he thought about what she said earlier. It was as if she did not intend to return to the Yi family. He said, Feifei, everything is fine now. It's good that you're back. Rest well at home. In the future, second uncle will take care of you on behalf of your parents. The Yi family's ancestor did not say anything. No one knew what he was thinking. Thank you, second uncle. However, my parents asked me to give the ancient red lotus to their master. At the same time, they asked her to take care of me, so before she could finish, she was interrupted. Give the ancient red lotus to them. The Yi family's ancestor's expression turned ugly as he lost his composure and exclaimed, Yes, Yi Feifei said and bowed to them. We still have things to do, so we'll take our leave first. The Yi family's ancestor still wanted to say something, but was stopped by the Yi family's second master. The second master of the Yi clan stood up and cupped his hands towards Du Fan and by Qingsheng, saying, Please take care of Feifei during this period of time. Du Fan smiled and returned the greeting. Goodbye. He glanced at Yi Feifei before walking out with them. Seeing them walk out of the hall, Yi clan's ancestor looked at Yi clan's second master with a sullen face and asked, What is the meaning of this? Was he going to let them go just like that? A treasure like the ancient red lotus is given away just like that? The Yi clan's second master sighed softly and said, Ancestor, they aren't ordinary people, and that primordial red lotus isn't an ordinary treasure either. It's good that they took it away. If it was left in our clan, who knows when it would bring disaster to our clan. Chapter 4083. Hearing this, the Yi family's patriarch looked deeply at him, then took a deep breath, calmed his fluctuating emotions, and finally said, All right, I still need you to deal with the matters in the manor. You can leave first. Yes. Yi clan's second master bowed, then retreated. Watching him leave, Elder Yi remained silent for a while. Finally, he sighed deeply, shook his head, and walked out. Who would have thought that at his age, he could not see through things as clearly as the younger generation? It was also because his will was not strong enough that he became greedy after hearing about such a treasure. The ancient red lotus. That was truly a rare treasure in the world. Perhaps he was right. If such a thing fell into the hands of the Yi family might not be able to protect it. Forget it. Let's just leave it at that. On the other side, accompanied by Du Fan and by Qingsheng, Yi Feifei went to the back of the Yi family's mountain and took out the hidden item. She then went with them to Fengjiu's place. On the way back, Bai Qingsheng looked at Yi Feifei and asked, Have you thought it through? Have you really decided? After leaving the Yi family, Yi Feifei told them about her plans. She said that she wanted to follow her master. This surprised them. After all, she hadn't been with her master for long. She had actually developed such thoughts in the 2 days she had been by her master's side. It had to be said that they were somewhat surprised. However, she also knew that compared to staying in the Yi family to take care of her, staying by her master's side would be different from staying in the Yi family. I've thought it through, Yi Feifei said. She then asked nervously, I just don't know if she'll let me stay. She thought for a long time before making this decision. She was alone in the Yi family. If she did not stay in the Yi family, she would go out on her own. As a woman, she did not know what she would encounter outside. However, if she followed the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, even if it was just a servant by her side, she thought that her life would be different. Moreover, the most important thing was that during these 2 days, she also knew that the people around her were all experts. Whether it was Du Fan and the others, Lung Shuang, by Qingsheng or Qingxin, they all had their own abilities. Therefore, she wanted to learn from her. Du Fan smiled and said, You've thought it through. However, whether she accepts you or not, it's up to my master. Du Fan glanced at her and gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand. He said, She can take care of you, but it's different if you're by her side. Yi Feifei did not say anything. She only bit her lip and remained silent. The three of them returned to the residence and went to the main courtyard where Fengjiu was. As soon as they entered the courtyard, they saw Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu holding their child and playing with her. Seeing them enter, Fengjiu smiled and said, "You're back, Master." Du Fan and Bai Qingsheng bowed and retreated to the side. Yi Feifei went forward and knelt down. She looked at Fengjiu and handed the box in her hand to him. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and looked at Yi Feifei kneeling in front of him. He asked, "What are you doing? If you have something to say, get up and say it." Before she could reach out to take the box, the daughter in her arms cried out. She reached out to hold the box in her arms and leaned forward to bite it. Chapter 4084. Yi Feifei knelt on the ground and did not get up. Instead, she looked at Fengjiu and said, "That thing is a treasure. Since my mother said to give it to you, then I'll give it to you. I have no use for it, but I hope that you can let me stay by your side." Hearing this, Fengjiu could not help but smile and said, "Stay by my side? Recognize me as your master?" "Yes." Yi Feifei looked at her nervously, afraid that she would hear a rejection. Fengjiu hugged the daughter in his arms who wanted to reach out and play with the box. He smiled and said, "You don't want to be the eldest daughter of the Yi clan. Why do you want to stay by my side? You have to know that as long as I say the word, no one in the Yi clan will dare to neglect you. Here, no one will dare to bully you. After 2 years, find a good family to marry and live a carefree life. Isn't that better?" "No, I don't want to live that kind of life." She shook her head and knelt on the ground, refusing to get up. She did not want to marry and stay in the courtyard. If her parents were still here, if she did not experience the past 3 years, if she did not see the coldness and warmth of human nature, perhaps she would have made that choice. But now, she did not want to, nor was she willing. Fengjiu smiled and played with the hand of his daughter in his arms and said, "Then, do you want to join a sect to cultivate? I can also help you and let you become the disciple of the person you want to become your master." Yi Feifei said in a small voice, "I just want to follow you. If you follow me, you will not be the eldest daughter of the Yi clan. You will only be a servant here. Here, no matter what I want you to do, you have no right to refuse. Even if I want you to die, you can only obey. Even so, do you still want to follow me and recognize me as your master?" "Yes, I'm willing. As long as I follow you, I'm willing to do anything." Yi Feifei quickly nodded and said. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Why? Why do you want to stay by my side and be my servant instead of living a good life?" Yi Feifei lowered his head and said, "My parents are no longer here. Although there are relatives in the family, there are not many who treat me sincerely. I don't want to go back to that family. However, if I go out alone, I won't be able to protect myself if I encounter danger because I'm not strong enough. That's why I want to follow you, because you're very powerful, and the people around you are also very powerful. I want to be as powerful as them." Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at her deeply and said, "I won't be staying here forever. I will leave once I'm done here. If I leave, I don't know when I'll come back." "Ma'am, I know. Even if I don't come back, it doesn't matter. When I'm stronger in the future, I can come back and pay my respects to my parents," Yi Feifei said. Seeing this, Fengjiu said, "Since that's the case, then you can stay. However, from this moment onwards, you must remember that the most important thing to stay by my side is loyalty and never betray me. If there comes a day when you don't want to follow me, you can choose to leave. However, don't betray me. Otherwise, I will make you suffer a fate worse than death." Chapter 4085. "All right, get up." Fengjiu gestured for her to stand up. Du Fan and the others in the courtyard glanced at Yi Feifei, then looked at each other and smiled. It seemed that they had another companion. However, they did not expect it to be this Yi Feifei. Xianyuan Mose glanced at Yi Feifei, then moved the box in front of him. Seeing that there was still a seal on the box, he gathered spiritual energy in his palm and unlocked the seal. When he opened it, he found that there was a pearl wrapped in rich spiritual energy. The bead was only the size of an egg yolk and was milky white. However, there was a flame burning in the middle of the bead. Moreover, when he held the bead in his hand, he could feel that the bead was emitting a warm aura. He played with the bead in his hand and looked at it repeatedly. He saw that there was a red object under the flame. He couldn't see it clearly, but it was still very strange that there was a flame burning in the middle of the bead. He thought that it would be a red lotus, but he did not expect it to be such a red lotus fire. This is the ancient red lotus. Feng Jiu was slightly surprised. He took the pearl from Xinyuan Mo's and looked at it. When his hand touched the pearl, he felt a flame enter his palm. Moreover, when he held the pearl, he could feel that the green lotus in his body had a strange feeling. This bead is sealed. My mother used many methods, but was unable to open the seal, Yi Feifei said as he looked at the bead. Feng Jiu looked at it and handed it to Xinyuan Mo's. Try to open the seal. I can't open it, Xinyuan Mo said, but did not take it. When he took the pearl out of the box, he tried to break the seal on the pearl. However, with his cultivation, he still could not do it. Feng Jiu was slightly surprised and looked at the pearl. Who sealed this? To be able to seal the ancient red lotus and preserve it here, it's quite impressive. Moreover, it's able to seal the powerful ancient aura without leaking out at all. Yiya, Yuer, who was held in the bosom of Feng Jiu, waved her little hand, wanting to take the pearl in Feng Jiu's hand. Feng Jiu looked down and saw his daughter drooling and smiling. Her chubby little hand reached out to take the bead in her hand, so he stuffed the bead in her hand. Take it, for you to play. Hearing this, Yi Feifei, who was standing at the side, was slightly startled. He couldn't help but look at Feng Jiu and then at the little master in her arms. He was a little surprised that she actually stuffed such a treasure into the child's hands and treated it as a toy. When Du Fan and the others saw this, they smiled faintly, as if they were used to this. Qing Cheng, bring Feifei down. Explain the rules to her, arrange her daily tasks, and introduce her to the people in the mansion. Feng Jiu signaled Bai Qing Cheng to bring her down. Yes. Bai Qing Cheng answered and looked at Yi Feifei. Yi Feifei bowed, and then followed by Qing Cheng to leave. Master, do you have a way to open the seal of the ancient red lotus? Du Fan asked. Chapter 4086. As she spoke, she paused and looked at Du Fan, sizing him up. Seeing her gaze fall on him, Du Fan didn't know what she was thinking, but there was a hint of a teasing smile on her lips. Du Fan was startled and couldn't help but ask, Master, why are you looking at me like that? Nothing, I just have a task for you. Feng Jiu smiled, and a smile flashed across her eyes. What task? Please instruct me, Master, Du Fan said. As for Yi Feifei, you will be in charge of guiding her in her cultivation. With her current strength, she can use some pills to assist her. Then, you can see which area she is good at and give her some pointers. Hearing this, Du Fan frowned and said, Master, Yi Feifei and I don't get along well. Why don't we let Qi Kong teach her? Or anyone else will do. Anyway, anyone of my people is qualified to guide her. Feng Jiu shook her head and smiled. No, you have to go. Huilang couldn't help but grin when he heard this and looked at Du Fan as if he was watching a good show. Du Fan had no choice but to agree, yes. Seeing his master's expression, he knew what his master was thinking. Xinyuan Mo's dismissed them. When only the two of them were left in the courtyard, he said, Now that the ancient red lotus is in our hands and your name has spread here, most of the matters have been settled. Pick a time and use your spiritual energy to reclaim this land. Actually, I have a plan. Feng Jiu looked at him and said. Xinyuan Mo's looked at her and asked, What plan? My strength hasn't recovered to its peak. Moreover, I have a pair of children to take care of, and I don't have much energy left. Moreover, I'm already the ruler of the heavens and earth. I don't think it's important whether I reclaim this land or not. Hearing this, Xinyuan Mo's frowned and said, You don't want this land? If you reclaim it, it'll be good for you. I know. It's just that they've been by my side for so long. I want to give them a chance. Feng Jiu looked at him and smiled. I want Qi Kong or Du Fan to be the master of this world. Xinyuan Mo's was silent for a moment. After a while, he said, With their strength, ability to deal with matters, and adaptability, they are indeed qualified to take charge of an area. Feng Jiu nodded and said slowly, Yes, it's not just the two of them. The 8 captains of the Phoenix Guard are not weak either. They have been by my side for many years and have experienced many things. They can already take charge and become overlords. Initially, I wanted you to be the master of heaven and earth here. But since you have such a plan, that's fine too. Xinyuan Mose had no objections to her plan because he knew that everyone by her side was very loyal. Even if they became overlords, they would still be her subordinates. Since that was the case, there was nothing wrong with letting her subordinates take charge of this land. Xinyuan Mose paused and said, "When you go back, you have to increase your strength. Put aside all the matters at hand and focus on cultivation. Also, I will have people find the demon lord's hiding place. If we don't get rid of him, he will be a hidden danger." Chapter 4087. Xinyuan Mose's gaze landed on his daughter. Looking at her adorable and delicate little face, the corners of his lips curled up into a satisfied smile. Our daughter has good taste. Her choice of toys is also extraordinary. Since she likes this bead, there's no need to keep it. Let her play with it. Hearing this, Fengjiu glared at him. You can't spoil her like this. Are you going to let her play with everything? It doesn't matter. The seal on this bead hasn't been broken anyway. As Xinyuan Mo spoke, he looked at the little fellow and grinned. Only then did he say, "Here, you carry the son. I'll carry the daughter." As he spoke, he handed the son in his arms to Fengjiu, and then took the daughter from her arms. The next day, early in the morning, in the main courtyard, "Master, Yama Lord." Qi entered and bowed to them. Seeing that everyone was here except for him, he couldn't help but feel slightly surprised. He looked at Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mose, wondering if they had any orders for him. "Qi, we've decided to let you take over this land and be the master of this land. What do you think?" Fengjiu spoke directly. Hearing this, Qi was stunned. He looked at Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mose and said, "Master, didn't you say you'd be the master?" Fengjiu smiled and said, "You're not weak. You're already capable of taking charge. After discussing it with Mose, I feel that it's not a bad idea to let you take over, so I wanted to ask for your opinion." Seeing this, Qi paused and thought for a moment. He didn't decline and said, "If it's your decision, I'll follow it." "Good. Let Du Fan and the others help you set up a spiritual array. After you take over this land, we can leave," Fengjiu said with a smile. He looked at Du Fan and the others and said, "You guys help him set up the array and boundary. Get this done as soon as possible." "Yes." The few of them replied and looked at Qi with smiles on their faces. In the following days, Fengjiu focused on cultivation, hoping to increase his strength as soon as possible. Du Fan and the others helped Qi set up the array and boundary. Half a month later, the heavenly thunder rumbled in the sky. The entire land sky was enveloped by a powerful spiritual energy. When the first bolt of lightning struck, the atmosphere in the air seemed to be different. In a city, an old man looked at the phenomenon in the sky and muttered, "Looks like our continent finally has a ruler of the heavens and the earth." Ghost Dr. Fengjiu. A powerhouse has descended to rule the land. Good. This way, we're no longer without a master here. An old man from a sect stroked his beard and smiled. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Powerful spiritual energy filled the air. The spiritual energy gradually dispersed and weakened until it was almost non-existent. However, no matter how weak the aura was, the strands of spiritual energy could still be felt. Rumble! The heavenly thunder rumbled in the clouds. This lasted for an entire day and night. Only when a 7-colored rainbow covered most of the land in the morning did everyone watch the sky gradually return to normal. Chapter 4088. The common people looked at the huge 7-colored rainbow with smiles and joy on their faces. Some cultivators, on the other hand, had a complicated feeling in their hearts as they had an indescribable feeling. Their world finally had a lord of heaven and earth. In the residence of Fengjiu and the others, Xinyuan Mose glanced at the sky before retracting his gaze and continuing to play chess. On the side, the two children were minding their own business as they played. There was a bead between the two children. When one of them stretched out his chubby little hand to grab it, the other followed suit. Yaya, little Yu crawled forward, and when she saw that the bead was taken by her older brother, She moved forward and bit it with her little mouth. Little Mukin tightly held the bead in his hand, but in the next moment, his drooling little mouth moved forward and bit his hand. The little fellow felt the pain and started to cry. His hand loosened and the bead rolled out of his hand. Wah, Yaya! Little Yu opened her mouth and cried out in surprise. She then crawled forward to pick up the bead and play with it. Xianyuan Mose looked at the two children. When he saw that his precious daughter was bullying her older brother again, he couldn't help but shake his head and smile. He gently stroked her hair with one hand and softly said, "You can't bully your older brother, understand?" Ha ha. The little fellow opened his mouth and giggled. In any case, he didn't know what Xianyuan Mose was talking about. He only held the bead and played with it. Sometimes he would put it to his mouth and bite it. His face was smeared with saliva. Little dirty cat. Xianyuan Mose helplessly smiled. He took out a handkerchief and helped her wipe the saliva off her face. Then he called out to the outside, "Go and bring the food for the two children." Yes, Lung Shuang and Yi Fei Fei, who were waiting outside the courtyard, responded. "Come, Daddy will bring you to wash your hands." Xianyuan Mose stepped forward and carried little Mukin to the side. He washed his little hands and face in a basin of water. Therefore, he didn't see that little Yu, who was sitting in the crib, took the bead and stuffed it into her mouth. She wanted to bite it as usual, but this time she opened her little mouth and directly put the bead in her mouth. She didn't know how, but the bead slid down her throat and got stuck in her throat. Her little face, and on the other hand, her eyes were wide open. She waved her little hands and wanted to make sound, but she couldn't. At this time, Xianyuan Moses sighed. His face, and on his side, when he saw his daughter's appearance, he quickly went forward and put his son down. He picked up his daughter and hung her head upside down while patting her back with one hand. Kacha! Who would have thought that the sound of something cracking could be heard? Then, the bead fell out of Yu's throat. However, at this time, the bead had already split into two halves and fell to the ground. The ancient red lotus that was in the middle of the bead had also entered Yu's body at the same time the bead split. Wah! Wah woo woo woo! Little Muyu opened her throat and cried. But as she cried and cried, her body became as hot as fire. Her whole face also turned red and beads of sweat seeped out of her forehead. She seemed to be in pain and also seemed to be in discomfort. However, she couldn't say anything and could only cry loudly. Chapter 4089. An icy aura flowed into the child's body through his palm. However, what he didn't expect was that not only was his icy aura unable to suppress the scorching heat, but it also made the aura even more powerful. It was so powerful that it was boiling. When he saw that the child's clothes were burning due to his body heat, he immediately shouted, "Swallow Cloud!" Swallow Cloud, who was practicing with White, Ing Yi, Hui Lang, and the others in the front yard, heard Xianyuan Moses' voice and immediately turned back. He was as fast as the wind and returned to the main yard almost instantly. Hui Lang, Ing Yi, and the others, who were with Swallow Cloud, heard their master shout and their hearts sank. They immediately followed him to the main yard. "Yama Lord, what happened?" Swallow Cloud was the first to arrive at the main yard. As soon as he arrived, he noticed that something was wrong with the little master. When he came closer, he could even feel the heat from the little master's body. "Quickly go into the space and summon Agio. Quickly!" Xianyuan Mose shouted and ordered him to quickly return to the space. Yes! Swallow Cloud immediately used his divine sense, and in the next moment, he turned into a ray of light and disappeared. The master was practicing in the space, and others could not enter. Only the contracted beasts who had a soul contract with her could return there. After Swallow Cloud disappeared, Ing Yi, Hui Lang, and the others quickly came to the main yard. When they saw the scene in the yard, their expressions changed, and they could not help but exclaim, "Master, what's wrong? What's wrong?" In the kitchen, Lung Hua, Lung Shuang, Qin Xian, Yi Fei Fei, and the others also quickly came to the main yard when they heard Xianyuan Moses shout. Therefore, when they saw the scene in the yard, Lung Hua quickly went forward and carried little Mu Chun in his arms so that he would not be scalded by the heat. Then he asked, Yamalord, what's wrong? In the space, Fengjiu felt the moment Swallow Cloud enter the space. She opened her eyes and looked at Swallow Cloud, asking, "What's wrong?" "Master, something happened to little Master." When Fengjiu heard this, he stood up abruptly and dashed out without even asking what had happened. When she rushed out of the room with a flash of light, she felt the ancient aura in the air and saw her daughter's little face flushed red from the heat. She quickly went forward and carried the child. How could this be? The aura of the ancient red lotus? What did she just do? Fengjiu asked as he channeled green lotus chi into her body in an attempt to suppress the power of the red lotus flame. Wah, 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 wah. The little fellow opened his throat and cried loudly. His cries were extremely loud and clear, but in Xianyuan Moses' ears, it was like a knife stabbing into his heart. I wasn't paying attention for a moment, and she stuffed the bead in her mouth. The bead was stuck in her throat. I gathered my chi in my palm and patted it. I don't know what happened, but the bead fell out and broke into two halves. But the ancient red lotus disappeared without a trace, and then you became like this. I'm guessing, did she eat the ancient red lotus? Hearing this, not only was Fengjiu stunned, even Hui Lang and the others did not expect this. Chapter 4090. However, at this time, Yu had already fainted. Her small face was still filled with tears, and her body was still very hot. Seeing that the heat on her body was gradually dissipating, Fengjiu tried to retract her hand. However, just as she retracted her hand, she felt that the aura that was suppressing her rose again. Her body that was gradually recovering gradually returned to its previous state. She was so scared that her hand didn't dare to leave her body. She could only continuously transmit the aura of green lotus to her. She ate the ancient red lotus. Fengjiu said, looking at her daughter, that ancient red lotus life flame is called red lotus karmic fire. This flame's power is extraordinary. If it was an ordinary person who ate the ancient red lotus, they would only end up burning to death. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose couldn't hide the worry on her face. She asked, then how is she now? Can you suppress this red lotus karmic fire? Fengjiu was silent for a moment. Then she said, suppressing it is useless. If we can't draw it out, then we can only let Yu become its master. Fengjiu said, and the aura of green lotus in her hand was once again transmitted into Yu's body. She used the aura of green lotus to suppress the flame of the ancient red lotus. However, after using the aura of green lotus for a long time, her forehead was oozing with sweat, and her complexion had also become somewhat pale. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose condensed spiritual power in her palm and transmitted it into Fengjiu's body. Looking at this scene, Grey Wolf, Ying, Lung Hua, and the others all looked solemn. Their hearts were in their throats. They were afraid that something bad would happen to their little master. At this time, they were also endlessly blaming themselves. They should have left someone here to take care of you, If someone had stayed here, perhaps this kind of thing wouldn't have happened. Fengjiu tried to draw out the ancient red lotus. However, she didn't expect that the ancient red lotus was actually unwilling to come out. No matter if she used the aura of green lotus to lure out or other things, she couldn't draw it out. We can't lure him out, Fengjiu said as he looked at Xianyuan Mose. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose lowered his voice and thought, the child's spiritual energy is abundant and pure. Now that it has entered, it will be troublesome to make it come out. However, if we are unable to draw it out, then we will think of a way to make Yu become the master of the ancient red lotus. Fengjiu was a little hesitant. The child is so young. I'm afraid that she won't be able to control herself and won't know how to control herself. If we can't lure it out, then this is the only way, Xianyuan Mose said in a low voice. Seeing this, Fengjiu did not say anything more. Instead, the two of them worked together to help their daughter fuse with the ancient red lotus and become one with it. When the heat on Yu's body receded, the spiritual energy in her body also gradually recovered. The karmic fire of the red lotus in her body was forced into a corner and could only choose to fuse with the ancient red lotus. And so, when a red flame sprang out from between Yu Er's eyebrows with a whoosh. It turned into a flame-shaped red birthmark and landed on top of the cinnabar mole between her eyebrows. Xinyuan Mose and Feng Jiu looked at each other and sighed in relief at the same time. Feng Jiu retracted the aura he released and gently exhaled. He raised his hand to wipe away the sweat on his forehead. Looking at his daughter who hadn't woken up yet, he couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. I've tried several methods to open the ancient red lotus, but I still couldn't. I didn't expect that it would become Yu Er's in the end. It really is fate. Chapter 4091. Xinyuan Mose and Feng Jiu looked at the red flame on little Yu Er's forehead, their eyebrows slightly furrowed. They looked at each other. Xinyuan Mose remained silent while Feng Jiu said, "She's fine for now. However, she's still young and can't control the power of the ancient red lotus." She paused and looked at Xinyuan Mose. "Help her seal this power first. Wait until she's a little older and then help her undo the seal." Seeing this, Xinyuan Mose nodded. "Okay." He stepped forward, raised his hand, and bit his middle finger. A drop of blood seeped out from the tip of his finger. Following that, he condensed spiritual power in his hand, and with a soft chant, the drop of blood from his middle finger flew into the space between little Yu Er's eyebrows. As the drop of blood flew into her body, the red flame on her forehead also disappeared. "That's enough." As Xinyuan Mose spoke, he stepped forward and carried his daughter. He said to Feng Jiu, "I'll take her inside first." As he spoke, he walked into the room. Feng Jiu watched him carry his daughter into the room and then withdrew his gaze. He looked at everyone in the courtyard and said, "The fact that the ancient red lotus is with you or must be kept a secret. Don't let this news leak out." "Yes." Everyone responded and looked at each other. "Disperse." Feng Jiu motioned for them to withdraw. Then, he carried Mu Chun and walked into the room. Lung Hua and the others left the courtyard. When they were outside, they glanced at each other. Gray Wolf let out a sigh of relief and said, "Just now I was really frightened. When I rushed over, I saw young Master's red face. I was so scared that I broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, it was just a false alarm," Lung Hua said and looked at Ing. "You should return to the courtyard. No matter what happens in the future, the courtyard can't be without someone." "Okay." Ingy nodded and went back to hide in the dark to keep watch. "Bring the things from the kitchen over," Lung Shuang said to Yi Feifei. "All right." Yi Feifei responded and left first. In the main courtyard, Feng Jiu walked in with her son in her arms. She saw Xinyuan Mose sitting by the bed and looking at his daughter, who was still sleeping. Seeing that he was still holding the child's little hand, she walked forward and said softly, "Don't worry, she's fine. She'll wake up soon. I shouldn't have given that pearl to you or to play with," Xinyuan Mose said. His face was full of self-blame. Feng Jiu sat down by the bed with her son in her arms and put him down. She saw the little fellow crawling to his little sister's side and sitting there, crying out. Looking at this scene, she couldn't help but reveal a smile. Looking at her son and daughter with a joyful expression, she said, "Even you and I couldn't open the seal on that pearl. However, due to a freak combination of factors, Yu was able to open it. Perhaps this is the destiny of the underworld." Xinyuan Mose remained silent and didn't speak. He only looked at his sleeping daughter. Seeing him like this, Feng Jiu accompanied him for a while. They chatted and talked about some matters regarding the ancient red lotus. When evening came, Yu, who had been sleeping all along, finally woke up. "Wah wah." The little fellow opened his throat and cried. He didn't even open his eyes and kept drilling into Xinyuan Mose's bosom. Chapter 4092. When the little girl heard the familiar voice and smelled the familiar scent, her sobbing gradually became softer. She opened her teary eyes and looked at Xinyuan Mose. She pursed her lips pitifully and made Xinyuan Mose's heart melt. "It's Daddy's fault. Daddy didn't take good care of you," Xinyuan Mose said as he gently stroked his daughter's black hair. Feng Jiu looked at his daughter's watery eyes as she looked at her father. She pursed her lips pitifully, and he couldn't help but smile. He reached out and gently held his daughter's hand. You really scared your daddy." The two of them stayed in a room with their daughter until Chi Kong and the others returned at night. Only then did the two of them leave the room. Master, Yama Lord, Chi Kong, Du Fan, and the others bowed to the two of them. You're back. Is everything done? Feng Jiu asked. His gaze swept past a few of them and landed on Chi Kong. Seeing this, Chi Kong replied, It's all done. I've also opened up the boundary between heaven and earth. We can go back at any time. Then let's go in 3 days. We'll leave in 3 days. As Feng Jiu spoke, he glanced at them and said, Go back and have a good rest. There's nothing to do for the next 2 days. Rest well and prepare to set off. Yes, the few of them replied. They looked at each other and paused for a moment. Du Fan asked, Master, when we came back, we heard from Hui Lang that the ancient Red Lotus is now with Little Master. Will anything happen to it? When he heard their question, Feng Jiu said, The ancient Red Lotus has been sealed. There shouldn't be any problems at the moment. That's good. After saying that, they bowed and retreated. The next morning, an old Taoist dressed in a gray robe stroked his beard as he crossed the street. He stopped in front of the house where Feng Jiu and the others were. He raised his head and looked at the top of the house. Purple chi circled around the house. An auspicious chi soared into the sky. He could not help but smile and nod to himself. As expected of the Lord of Heaven and Earth, the true dragon and auspicious phoenix. This level of purple chi is not something that ordinary people can possess. As he spoke, he stood outside the house and looked at the sky. Then, he looked at the tightly shut door of the house. In the end, he did not take another step forward. After an unknown period of time, he sighed softly and shook his head. In the end, he raised his foot and took a step forward. He arrived in front of the door and knocked on the door. The door creaked open, and Lung Hua, dressed in a crescent moon robe, stood at the door. When he saw the old Taoist in front of the door, a hint of surprise flashed through his gentle eyes. This surprise flashed past extremely quickly, as if it had never appeared. Who are you looking for? Lung Hua asked gently. I'm looking for your little master, he said slowly, stroking his beard with one hand. Lung Hua smiled and asked, How should I address you? Why are you looking for my little master? I'm Wu Yuzi. I'm here for your 2 little masters. As the old Taoist spoke, his eyes narrowed and he smiled. Hearing this, Lung Hua pondered for a moment. Then, he turned sideways and gestured for the old Taoist to enter. Please come in and have a cup of tea. Okay, the old Taoist responded. With a wave of his wide sleeves, he followed him inside. Chapter 4093. Yes, Yi Fei agreed. After making tea, she went to the hall. When she arrived at the hall, she saw an old Taoist sitting there looking around. When he saw her come in, he looked her up and down and then revealed a strange smile. She suppressed the strange feeling in her heart and brought the tea forward with a smile. Please have some tea, Taoist. Thank you, Mississippi. The old Taoist smiled and thanked her. Seeing that she was about to leave, he said, Miss, please wait. Yi Fei was stunned and stopped to look at him. She asked, Is there anything else? Ha, it's nothing. It's just that it's a little boring to wait here alone. Why don't you chat with this poor Taoist? He said with a smile and stroked his beard while looking at her. Seeing this, Yi Fei paused and said, Those who come are guests, and I'm just a servant. I don't dare to chat with a guest. Why don't you have a cup of tea first? Hearing this, the old Taoist took a sip of the tea and put it down. He smiled and said, Tea needs to be drunk and words need to be said. Just for the sake of this cup of tea that you made for me, I have to remind you that you will have a tribulation. This is no small matter. If you're not careful, you'll lose your life here. Hearing this, Yi Fei frowned and the smile on her beautiful face disappeared. She looked at the old Taoist and said softly, Isn't there a saying that if it's a blessing, it's not a curse? If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. It doesn't matter whether it's a tribulation or not. If it's not time for me to die, I'll be able to cross the tribulation that you mentioned. Saying this, she bent her knees slightly and bowed. I still have something to do. Please help yourself. When she finished speaking, she turned around and saw Du Fan standing there looking at her. Seeing him, Yi Fei pursed her lips and lowered her head slightly before retreating. Dufan put his hands behind his back and watched her walk past him. When she walked out quickly, he retracted his gaze and looked at the old Taoist inside. With just a glance, he recognized that the old Taoist was the monk's so-called old friend. But he didn't expect that the old Taoist who didn't have much contact with them would come to them now. That monk had already left. What was this old Taoist doing here? Taoist leader, I trust you've been well since we last met. Dufan walked in and cupped his hands. Hearing this, the old Taoist was startled for a moment before smiling. He got up and clasped his hands. Speaking of which, this is the first time this old Taoist has come to visit. Although this is the first time we've met, we're no strangers to you. Dufan walked into the hall with a smile and gestured for him to sit down. The old priest smiled. They naturally knew that the monk had gone to his place. As for him, they had probably investigated his background as well. Just now, Taoist priest, did you say that the girl will face a calamity? Dufan asked, his gaze landing on the old Taoist priest. That's right. Furthermore, this tribulation is extremely dangerous. The old Taoist nodded as he spoke. Dufan smiled warmly and said, Taoist Wu Yuzi's name is very famous. Many people want to see you, but it's hard to get a chance to see you. I'm curious, why did Taoist Wu Yuzi come here? Could it be that you're here to help that girl? Ha ha ha, young Master Du, you don't have to guess or be suspicious. I'm not here for anyone else. I'm here for the two young masters of your residence. He stroked his beard and smiled. He didn't mind Dufan's straightforward reply. Chapter 4094. Taoist priest, please speak your mind. Fengjiu walked in from outside, followed by Leng Hua. Seeing Fengjiu, the old Taoist priest stood up and bowed to her. Greetings, Phoenix Master. Taoist priest, please take a seat. Fengjiu gestured for him to sit. She walked to the main seat and sat down. Then she looked at the old Taoist priest sitting on the left and asked, Taoist Fa, what do you mean by what you said earlier? The old Taoist priest looked at Fengjiu, stroked his beard, and chuckled. I'm not the same as that monk. That monk always talks about not revealing the secrets of heaven, but I'm different. There are some things I can't say, but there are some things I can say. Fengjiu looked at him and didn't say anything. Yi Feifei came in with tea and poured tea for Fengjiu and the others. Then he quietly retreated to the side. Fengjiu didn't need to speak. The old Taoist priest stroked his beard and said, the Emperor Star and the Phoenix Star are unique existences in the world. However, due to the unpredictability of the heavenly Tao, the Emperor Star, which was originally a heavenly calamity star, changed because of the Phoenix Star. Not only did you two marry, but you also had a son and a daughter. This is truly a mystery of the heavenly Tao. You know, logically speaking, a heavenly calamity star is a person who has cut off all emotions and love. It's impossible for them to have these things. The old Taoist priest paused and looked at Fengjiu. He continued, the corresponding stars of the Emperor Star and the Phoenix Star are dazzling and shining. It can be said that the fated stars have been set long ago. However, your children's fated stars are hard to find, and their fates are unpredictable. It's hard to say if they can survive. This was the second time Fengjiu heard such words. The monk said it last time, and this time the old Taoist priest said it too. However, both the monk and the old Taoist priest were capable people. They weren't the kind of people who spoke without thinking. Therefore, her heart sank. When one person said this, she told herself that man could conquer the heavens. When two people said this, she told herself that fate could be changed. However, the heaviness in his heart and the worry in his heart could not be ignored. She picked up the teacup and took a sip. As the tea flowed down her throat, her heart calmed down. Then, she said, Taoist priest, I've already heard those words. Ha ha, that monk said it? The old Taoist smiled and said, looks like that monk isn't someone who doesn't know how to be flexible. However, he definitely didn't say how to break it, right? Fengjiu's eyes flashed as he looked at the old Taoist. Are you sure? The old Taoist looked like he knew it. He stroked his beard and said, because the monk doesn't know how to crack it. Could it be that you know? Fengjiu asked. I didn't know before, but I only found a method recently. He looked at Fengjiu and said, The children of the Emperor Star and the Phoenix Star are dragons and phoenixes among men from the moment they are born. Once they are born, they cause a sensation on this continent and attract the blessings of powerhouses from all over the world. They should be the children of fortune from all over the world. Unfortunately, their fated stars are hard to find and their lives are unpredictable. I can imagine that if they grow up, they will definitely be legendary existences like their parents. Therefore, I really can't bear to see them die at a young age without any solution. Chapter 4095. Fengjiu's heart skipped a beat because of his words. She listened intently to him, but he suddenly paused and did not continue. She felt as if her breath was stuck in her throat, unable to move up or down. It was very uncomfortable. Taoist priest, if you have something to say, please speak frankly, Fengjiu said slowly, her cold gaze landing on him. They must find their fated stars. Only when their fated stars are lit can they be considered as people who truly belong to this world. Moreover, after lighting up their fated stars, they will face 81 tribulations. Only after crossing these 81 tribulations can they be considered to have truly crossed this tribulation. He looked at Fengjiu, stroked his beard, and said, because of the strangeness of their fated stars, if they cannot find their fated ones like Di Xing, then even if they cross the 81 tribulations, they can only face the endless years alone. After all, as I said before, if Di Xing did not meet the Phoenix Master, his fated stars would also be alone in this life. Fengjiu thought for a moment and asked, the fated stars that Taoist priest is talking about, are they everything in this world corresponds to the stars in the sky? The fated stars of the two children are dim and have no light. They can find a powerful object to form a contract with them. The fated stars will be shared, and the two stars will shine together. The Taoist priest looked at Fengjiu and smiled. The Phoenix Master soul does not belong to this world, but her soul is so powerful that it is like she has taken over someone else's body. Therefore, it is different from the two children. However, the Phoenix Master has formed a fated contract with the ancient Fire Phoenix and has the ancient Green Lotus in her body. Naturally, she is not ordinary. If the two children also have such good fortune, they will naturally not have to fear the fated ones. Fengjiu was silent. She roughly understood what he meant. The method he was talking about was to let the two children form a fated contracts with a powerful contract chariot. In addition, they had to go through 81 tribulations. If they did not want to be alone for the rest of their lives, they had to have the good fortune to meet their fated ones. And this so-called person of destiny was an unfathomable existence. Perhaps it existed, perhaps it didn't. As for whether or not one could meet it, that was up to fate. The most important thing is that before their fated star is lit, they cannot leave this world that blessed them. Otherwise, their life and death will be unpredictable. The old Taoist looked at Fengjiu with a serious expression. We can't leave this place. Fengjiu was startled. The old Taoist nodded with a serious expression and said in a deep voice, before their fated star is lit up, they cannot leave this place. This is because of the strange phenomenon in the sky when they were born, and also because they are anomalies. It was this land that protected their safe birth. So if they leave before then, their souls will be unstable and their life and death will be uncertain. Fengjiu and the old Taoist priest were talking in the hall. In the main courtyard, Xinyuan Mose looked at the two children playing there. Their innocent faces were blooming with happy smiles. He couldn't help but curl his lips into a gentle smile. Seeing that Fengjiu had been gone for so long, he looked outside and saw Long Shuang waiting outside the courtyard. He asked, Long Shuang, who is it? Fengjiu had gone to the front courtyard after hearing the report and still hadn't returned. Who is it? What are they talking about? Chapter 4096. Hearing that, Xinyuan Mose responded. His deep gaze fell on his daughter's body. Seeing the little one giggling and playing there, he couldn't help but be slightly absent-minded. In his mind, he recalled the words that the monk said that time. Long Shuang saw that he was sitting and thinking about something. The tea on the table was already cold, so he made another cup of tea for him. As soon as the tea was placed down, he heard footsteps outside. Master! Long Shuang turned around and bowed to Fengjiu. Yes. Fengjiu responded and walked in. His gaze fell on Xinyuan Mo's. His words were directed at Lung Shuang. Tell them to put down what they're doing. We're not going back for now. Hearing this, Lung Shuang was stunned for a moment, then responded, yes. He didn't ask why, but just followed the order. What did the old Taoists say to make you change your itinerary? Xinyuan Mo's asked, his gaze falling on Fengjiu. Fengjiu sat down at the table, picked up the tea in front of him, and drank 2 mouthfuls. After calming down, she told him what the old Taoist said to her. Finally, she said, whether it's true or not, I don't dare to take this risk. Hearing this, Xinyuan Mo's frowned slightly and didn't say anything for a long time. He didn't expect this to be the case. Can't leave here? How much of what he said is true? Xinyuan Mo's asked. After sitting in the hall for a while, he left. He didn't ask for anything in return. Obviously, he didn't ask for anything else. He just came to tell us this. Fengjiu paused, then continued. After seeing him off, I chatted with Du Fan and the others for a while. I don't think he made up a reason at all. Moreover, what he said was well-founded. So, her voice stopped at this moment, and she didn't continue speaking. Her meaning was already very clear. When Xinyuan Mo's heard what she said, he knew what she meant, so he said, all right then, since that's the case, let's drop our original plan and stay here for now. However, if we stay here, I think we should move to a quieter place. Now that they were here, it could be said that those people knew they were here. Their every move was under everyone's observation. Although those people didn't dare to stare at them openly, they knew what they were doing. Although they didn't have any ill intentions, no one liked their every move being watched by others. Yes, I have the same idea. Fengjiu says. I'll ask them to look for it. Let's find a place to stay. As far as I know, ancient mythical beasts are rare, and some have already been contracted. If we want to find an ancient mythical beast for our 2 children, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Xinyuan Mo's brows furrowed at the mention of this. Feng Nine smiled and looked at the 2 children in the crib with curved eyes. She smiled and said, I know that mythical beasts of antiquity times are not easy to find. Moreover, mythical beasts of antiquity times without masters are even more difficult to find. Furthermore, not all mythical beasts of antiquity times are suitable for 2 children. Mythical beasts of antiquity times that are too ferocious and too violent in nature are not suitable. Chapter 4097. She had read the book of 10,000 beasts and knew that there were more than just a few ancient mythical beasts in this world. If she wanted to choose a contract beast for her children, she had to search carefully and find the most suitable one for them. As for her and Moses' current contract beasts, the Azure Dragon and the Fire Phoenix, although they were ancient mythical beasts and were extremely powerful, they were still their contract beasts. If she released them and asked them to form another contract, it would not be as good as helping them find a new contract beast. Every life, contract, beast accompanied their master as they grew. They grew stronger step by step through hardships. The relationship between them was not just a simple contract, but a family relationship. It was an indispensable part. It seems that the ancient red lotus being sealed in our daughter's body was also arranged by fate. Xinyuan Mo's said as he looked at his daughter, who was giggling at the side. Fengjiu's gaze followed his gaze and landed on the 2 children. He smiled and said, we will cross that bridge when we come to it. There will definitely be a solution to our current worries in the future. Man proposes, but God disposes. Who would have known that you would enter this world and experience so many things after coming here? Therefore, there were many things that did not need to be too worried. Everything was arranged by fate. Because of the arrival of the old Taoist priest, and because of his words, Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mo's original plan to leave this place in 2 days changed their itinerary. They planned to stay in this world for the time being, but they had to change their residence. Therefore, Qi Kong and Du Fan were responsible for finding a place. After a few days, they quietly left the city with their people and came to a villa located halfway up Mount Qingyan. At the foot of the mountain, Du Fan looked up and pointed at the faintly visible villa. He smiled at Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mo's and said, Master, Yamalord, look, this is the villa. The surrounding area belongs to the villa. The villa is halfway up the mountain, and you can see the scenery in the distance. The air is very good, and it is very quiet. Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu followed his gaze and looked up. They saw that above the verdant trees, there was a villa surrounded by green mountains and trees. The surrounding scenery was very quiet. Xianyuan Mose asked, "How did you find this place? What kind of people used to live in this place? Did you find out everything?" "Don't worry, Yama Lord, we found out everything." Du Fan continued. "This villa used to be a summer resort for an aristocratic family. They sold this place because of their relocation, so we bought it. All the procedures have been taken care of, so there are no problems or troubles." Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose nodded. Then, he held Fengjiu's hand and walked up the path in the forest. The people behind them followed. Bai Qingsheng and Lung Shuang each carried a child. They did not directly fly up on their swords. Instead, they enjoyed this rare moment of peace and quiet. They felt the elegance of the forest path and the fresh smell of the vegetation. The group walked slowly. The trees on both sides of the path blocked the sunlight for them, making the path in the forest cool and refreshing. The two children cried out and stretched out their hands from time to time, wanting to pull the leaves. Their delicate and cute faces were full of pleasing smiles, making people who saw them smile along with them. Chapter 4098. That's a good idea, but who has the time to take care of it? Du Fan glanced at her. He was still fanning himself with the fan in one hand as he followed Fengjiu and the others unhurriedly. Yi Feifei glanced at him but did not say anything. Gray Wolf grinned and said, "Why don't we plant peach trees and plum trees instead? When the flowers bloom, it'll be a beautiful sight." Hee. Moreover, the peach wine and plum wine are delicious, especially the wine brewed by Madame. It's mellow and fragrant. Master knows how to make wine. Yi Feifei's eyes lit up and looked at Hui Lang. Of course, Madame is omnipotent. Making wine is a piece of cake. Hui Lang raised his head proudly and said to Yi Feifei proudly, "Madame also gave me a jar of peach wine. I buried it under a peach tree in the Peach Blossom Cove. When I go back, I will dig it out and treat you to a drink." Yi Feifei's eyes lit up and asked curiously, "Where is the Peach Blossom Cove? What kind of place is it?" "It's a very beautiful place. It's very far away from here. If Master goes back in the future, we'll take you to see it," Gray Wolf said, patting her shoulder as if she was a brother. After taking the picture, he realized that the other party was a woman. He couldn't help but smile embarrassedly. He scratched his head a little embarrassedly and said, "Look at my careless personality. I accidentally mistook you for a man again." Yi Feifei's mouth twitched, and she did not know what to say. She instinctively looked down at herself. Did she look like a man? "I always mistook her for a man." Du Fan's light voice came from the side. When Yi Feifei heard this, he couldn't help but glare at him, but he saw him stride forward and go to the front to talk to his master. They all like to joke and are very nice people. After some time, you will know, Bai Qingchang said with a smile, and asked Yi Feifei not to mind. After all, when she had just started following her master, Du Fan and the others had made things difficult for her much more than Yi Feifei. However, after getting along with them for a long time, she knew that they were all very good people, especially after getting their approval. No matter what they did, they would protect their own people. That kind of protection was like family, making people feel warm and touched. "Yes, I know." Yi Feifei nodded. During this period of time, when she was by her master's side, they were indeed very good to her. Of course, it was also common for her to quarrel with Du Fan occasionally. Seeing that she had been carrying the little master the whole way, Yi Feifei said, "Let me carry you." Bai Qingchang smiled and said, "You haven't interacted much with the little masters. Some of them are still shy and won't let you hug them." "I see. All right then." As she spoke, she looked at the little master who was lying on Bai Qingchang's shoulder and blinking at her. She could not help but smile. The group of people walked up until they arrived at the entrance of the villa. Looking at the imposing entrance, everyone looked at each other and smiled. This place was even better than they had imagined. Du Fan and Qi Kong went forward to unlock the door and pushed it open. The two of them stepped back and said to Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu, "Yama Lord, Master, please." Chapter 4099. Xinyuan Mose and Fengjiu looked at each other and smiled in satisfaction when they saw the decorations and the tranquil manor. It was indeed a nice place. They walked in, but they didn't familiarize themselves with the manor's environment. Instead, they accompanied Xinyuan Mose and Fengjiu to the main courtyard to rest. After that, the others went to familiarize themselves with the manor's environment. Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mose were resting in the main courtyard. Yi Feifei brought them tea and some pastries from the telepathic space before he left. Speaking of which, I haven't seen Grandpa and the others for a long time. Fengjiu looked at Xinyuan Mose and said, I haven't seen them since the children were born. I really miss them. Since we can't bring the children back, why don't we bring them back? Why don't we let them come over? Xinyuan Mose said as his gaze fell upon her. Fengjiu shook his head and said, No, it's too far away. It's not good to let them travel all the way. We'll bring the children back when we have a chance. However, we have to find time to tell them the reason so that they won't worry. That's easy, Xinyuan Mose said. We'll tell them through our communication jade. Okay. Fengjiu nodded and took a sip of tea. Then, he got up and lay down on the soft couch. When he lay down comfortably, he couldn't help but relax. Well, this kind of life is actually quite good. If we can kill the Devil Master, the Black Lotus of the world will be purified, and the two children can grow up safely. That's really good. After saying that, she shook her head and smiled. People are always greedy. When they get something, they want something else. Xinyuan Mose looked at her. Seeing her half-squinting eyes and smiling face, he said, It's only a matter of time. It'll be solved eventually. I'll ask them to find out if there's any information about ancient mythical beasts on this continent. I want to catch two for the two children, Fengjiu said as he lay on the soft couch and looked at the sky. The sky was so big. What kind of place would have the ancient mythical beasts she wanted to find? In particular, the ancient mythical beasts, which were cruel and bloodthirsty, were not suitable. That was a bit tricky. Hearing that, Xinyuan Mo smiled and took out a map. He got up and walked to Fengjiu's side and said, Look at this map. He opened the map, and it showed the various places on it. This continent isn't small. Other than the forest we passed through when we first came here, there are 3 other large forests scattered in other places. In this place called the Cyan Demon Forest, it said that someone once saw an ancient 9-tailed fox. Hearing that, Fengjiu was slightly surprised. She sat up and looked at the place his hand was pointing at. An ancient 9-tailed fox. Yes, it once appeared in this forest. However, it's hard to say whether it's still in this forest now. Xinyuan Mose passed the map to her. Fengjiu automatically searched for information about the ancient 9-tailed fox in her mind. She remembered that in the Book of 10,000 Beasts, the 9-tailed fox was a noble among the fox. It was extremely rare and powerful. Compared to the other ancient mythical beasts, if this ancient 9-tailed fox became her daughter's contracted beast, it would be worth it. Chapter 4100. Xinyuan Mose took back the map in her hands and said, I'm telling you this not because I want you to go take a look at the forest, but because I want to take a look. Seeing that she was about to speak, he reached out to stop her and said, You haven't regained your peak strength yet, and you're not as good as before. It's better for you to stay at home and cultivate properly. Moreover, you can spend more time with the 2 children. Fengjiu smiled and said, It's precisely because my strength has fallen that I should go out. If I just cultivate here, I won't be able to advance quickly. Moreover, you should know that compared to cultivating in seclusion, it's faster to gain experience outside. Isn't that right? Moreover, perhaps I'll encounter an unexpected opportunity when I go out, right? Xinyuan Mose frowned slightly and pursed his lips, but he didn't say a word. He had told her about the ancient 9-tailed fox, not because he wanted her to search for it, but because he wanted to let him search for it. She could cultivate properly at home and spend more time with the children. However, it seemed like she wanted to go out. Seeing that he was silent, Fengjiu smiled and held his hand. Are you worried that I won't be able to handle it when I go out? Or are you reluctant for me to go out again? Xinyuan Mose glanced at her and said both. Fengjiu smiled and said, It would be the same if you went out. As she spoke, she sighed softly and said, It's a pity that the 2 children are still young. If they were older, we could bring them out to train and broaden their horizons. However, they're still so young now, and the outside world isn't suitable for them. So we're just going to let them stay here? Xinyuan Mose raised his eyebrows and looked at her. Why don't you come with me and let them take care of the children? Fengjiu said with a smile. No. Xinyuan Mose didn't even think about it before rejecting. How could he be at ease without the children by his side? Even though Qi Kong and the others were already very powerful, he still couldn't be at ease with them taking care of the two children. Perhaps it was because of the psychology of parents. They always felt that they could only be at ease with their children under their watch. It's not suitable to bring them along, and it's also not suitable for you to go with me and leave them at home. What should we do then? Fengjiu asked with a distressed look. Xinyuan Mose was silent, and he was also at a loss about this problem. Although he was confident in her abilities and adaptability, he didn't know when she would be able to find them and come back. He couldn't let her. He had no choice but to reconsider. You're willing to not see the two children for a year and a half? Xinyuan Mose asked, his deep gaze landing on her. I can't bear to, but isn't there no other choice? That's why tell me to let them do it. And Fengfeng's and Feng Fengjiu. And the others. And to Fengjiu to let me to help. To Fengji. They. This matter concerned her children. Even if it was extremely difficult, she would try her best to get it done. Seeing this, Xinyuan Mose was silent. What she was worried about was what he was worried about as well. Chapter 41:01. Fengjiu said softly. He slowly lowered his eyes and said, I don't know when the two children will have problems, and I don't know when a disaster will happen to them. We can only watch helplessly. So, I want to put an end to everything before it happens. Xinyuan Mose heard this and sighed silently in his heart. He reached out and held her hand. He said in a low voice, Things are not as bad as you think, so don't worry too much. Nothing has happened yet. Whether it will happen or not, it is still unknown. He paused and thought for a moment. After a while, he said, Since you want to go, then you can go, but you have to bring a few people with you. Don't be alone. Fengjiu smiled and held her hand tightly. He said, Right now, we were just talking about this. We haven't decided when to go. It is too early to talk about this. She stood up, took his hand, and said, Why don't we walk around the manor and take a look? The children are still asleep. If we leave, what if they wake up later? Xinyuan Mose said. It doesn't matter. Ing Yi is here. She looked into the darkness and smiled. Ing Yi, who was as silent as a shadow, had been guarding in the dark. So, even if they were not in the courtyard, they did not have to worry about the two children. Hearing this, Xinyuan Mose nodded. Well, then let's go. We can also ask them to cook some porridge for the children. As they spoke, the two of them walked out. The two of them strolled around the manor hand in hand, looking around and admiring the scenery in the manor. The entire manor was not small. Now that there were only the few of them, it seemed a little too cold and cheerless. Moreover, it would take a lot of effort to clean it up. We could buy some servants back. The manor is not small. If we let Qin Xian and the others clean it up, it will be too busy. Fengjiu said and pulled him up. The two of them sat on the roof of the manor and looked at the scenery in the distance. When we go back, we will ask Du Fan or Long Hua to go to the slave market and pick some back. Xinyuan Mose said. He looked at the scenery in the distance and gradually relaxed. The two of them sat there leaning against each other, looking at the scenery and talking. Occasionally, they would talk about funny things and smile. Du Fan, Long Hua, and the others in the manor saw the two of them sitting in a corner of the manor and smiled. Looking at the warm scene of them leaning against each other, they all smiled at each other. They stayed in the manor for a month. One day in the morning, Fengjiu called all of them to the hall and told them her plan. I plan to go out and look for the ancient nine-tailed fox in the Cyan Demon Forest. This time, I plan to take Fei Fei and Leng Hua with me. The others will stay here. As soon as Fengjiu finished speaking, everyone in the hall was slightly surprised and couldn't help but look at her. Master, Yi Fei Fei has only been with you for a short time. Moreover, she is the weakest among us. If you take her with you, not only will she not be able to help you, but she will also be a burden to you. Master, I don't recommend you take her with you. Du Fan said and directly analyzed the pros and cons. Chapter 4102. Just as Du Fan had said, she was the weakest among them. As a native of this mainland, she naturally knew about the Cyan Demon Forest. Her master actually said that he wanted to bring her along to such a dangerous place. If she went, not only would she not be of any help, she might even need her master to protect her. She might even become a burden to her master. When she thought of this, she began to worry. Master, he's right. My strength is the weakest. I'm not afraid of the dangers inside, but I'm afraid of dragging you down. Yi Fei looked at her uneasily. His heart was beating fast, and he was very nervous. Master, he's right. My strength is the weakest. Qi Kong glanced at Yi Fei and said, Master, the Azure Demon Forest is one of the 4 most dangerous places. If Master wants to go, why don't you take Yi Fei away and choose 1 or 2 of us to accompany you? With Yi Fei's strength, it's not suitable for her to go to such a place. Feng Jiu's lips curled into an indifferent smile and said, Which one of you didn't go through this before? Are you saying that the places I brought you to previously were very safe? Tell me, which one of you didn't go from weak to strong? Which one of you didn't go through countless trials and tribulations to stand here? She paused and chuckled. Her gaze fell on the nervous Yi Fei and said, I never keep useless people by my side. You've seen how outstanding they are. If you don't have the value you deserve, then you won't be able to stay by my side for long. Hearing Feng Jiu's words, Yi Fei's heart trembled. She looked at Feng Jiu and secretly clenched her fists, saying, Master, I'm not afraid of danger. Just take me there. It's just that I'll be a burden to you. She was still a little worried about this. If you're afraid of being a burden to me, then work hard to make yourself stronger, until you're strong enough that you won't be a burden to me. Feng Jiu said and looked at them, saying, I don't know when I'll be back from this trip. In the time that I'm not around, you have to be responsible for the safety of these 2 children. Originally, everyone didn't agree with her bringing Yi Fei along, but from what she said, which one of them didn't go through the same thing? They thought back to the time when they were young and weak. They had also grown up step by step. It was their master who brought them to the dangerous forest to gain experience. It was their master who allowed them to improve their fighting strength and adaptability through actual combat. Back then, they had also done the same. Now, what qualifications did they have to stop their master from bringing Yi Fei to gain experience? Thus, they looked at each other and said, Master will protect little master. Xian Yuan Mose, who had been silent the entire time, drank his tea and listened to their conversation. When they were done, he put down the teacup in his hand and looked at Feng Jiu. I have no objections to you bringing Lung Shuang and Yi Fei out, but since you're bringing them out, why don't you bring Du Fan along as well? Oh! Chapter 4103. As soon as he finished speaking, Du Fan stepped forward and said, Master, please bring me along. We can take care of each other on the way. Seeing this, Feng Jiu glanced at Xian Yuan Mose and smiled helplessly. All right, then let Du Fan come along. The rest of you can stay. Actually, she felt that it was fine even if Du Fan didn't come along. They could solve any problems. However, letting Du Fan go with them would make Mose and the others feel more at ease. So, let her come along. I've set up a transportation array in the manor. You can use it when you come back, Xian Yuan Mose said. He stood up and glanced at Feng Jiu, saying, Let them get ready. Since we're away from home, we've brought everything we need with us. Yama Lord, don't worry. We'll get everything ready, Du Fan said with a smile. Then go and get ready. We'll set off tomorrow. Feng Jiu said, and let Du Fan and the others get ready. Then he said to Qi Kong and the others, Let's go. With that, he held Xian Yuan Mose's arm and walked out. The 2 of them walked in the manor, cherishing every moment they had together. The others were also very reluctant to leave Feng Jiu. However, they also knew that their master had to go on this trip. They couldn't follow him, so they could only stay and guard the manor and their little master. The next morning, Qi Kong and the others waited outside the main courtyard. In the main courtyard, Feng Jiu hugged the 2 children and kissed their pink cheeks a few times. Then, he handed the children to bite Qin Sheng and Qin Xian. He said, Remember to put more clothes on the children when it's cold. Don't let them go hungry. At night, make sure they're covered with blankets. Also, if anything happens to them, you must send me a message." "Yes," the two of them replied and stood at the side with the children. Xin Yuan Mose looked at her and said, "You don't have to worry about this place. I will take good care of the two children. You just have to be careful outside." "Yes, I know." She nodded and stepped forward to hug him. "Then I'm leaving. Wait for me to come back." Xin Yuan Mose reached out and stroked her hair. He planted a kiss on her hair and said, "Go." Fengjiu stepped back and looked at him deeply. He then looked at the two children before he turned and walked out. She did not turn back, but walked out step by step. She was afraid that if she turned back, she would miss the two children, Mose and them. Du Fan bowed towards Xin Yuan Mose and nodded towards Qi Kong and the others. Only then did she lead Lung Shuang and Yi Feifei to follow behind Fengjiu and walk out together. Xin Yuan Mose did not send her off. He stood in the courtyard and watched her figure disappear from his sight. Only then did he withdraw his gaze and look at the two children. Qi Kong and the others quickly chased after them and sent them out of the manor. They watched them leave on their swords until their figures disappeared into the clouds. Only then did they look at each other and sigh softly. "How long do you think Madame will take to return this time?" Hui Lang asked. His eyes were filled with reluctance as he looked in the direction they had disappeared. "I don't know. However, what is certain is that they will not return in a short period of time." Wei Feng sighed softly and shook his head. He said, "Let's go. Let's go back." Lung Shuang withdrew his gaze after a long time. He said warmly, "I hope that everything will go smoothly for Master and the others." Chapter 4104. On the other side, after Fengjiu and the others flew on their swords for some distance, they let Du Fan drive the purple gold spirit deer carriage in the air. The carriage galloped above the clouds, so the people below did not see it. Because the carriage was stable and spacious, and he did not need to fly on his sword, Fengjiu sat cross-legged in the carriage to cultivate. Yi Feifei, who saw the purple gold spirit deer carriage for the first time, was amazed. She and Lung Shuang sat in the carriage with Fengjiu, while Du Fan was in charge of driving the carriage. At this time, when she saw Fengjiu sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed to cultivate, she quietly lifted a corner of the curtain and looked through the window to see the sky outside. She saw that the wind was blowing outside. Because the spirit deer carriage was very fast, the scenery outside flashed in front of her eyes. Looking at the endless blue sky and the flower-like white clouds, she could not help but smile in surprise. It was the first time she sat in such a spirit deer carriage. It was stable and comfortable, and the speed was very fast. The purple gold spirit deer carriage flew high above the clouds, so the people below could not see them. She even leaned against the window and watched. Occasionally, she could see cultivators riding on swords below them, passing by in a flash. Looking at the scenery outside, she was in a relaxed state. From time to time, she looked back at her master. She saw that her master was cultivating with her eyes closed, and Lung Shuang was sitting quietly with his eyes closed. She gently put down the curtain and leaned against the carriage door, whispering, "Du Fan, Du Fan." Du Fan, who was driving the spirit deer carriage outside, heard Yi Feifei's voice and asked, "What's the matter?" Seeing that he answered her, she smiled and asked with some curiosity, "I heard that the purple gold spirit deer eats gold coins. Is it true? Where did Master catch such a rare spirit beast?" "Master has 2 disciples, and this is a gift from one of them to Master." Du Fan paused for a moment before continuing, "You've been with Master for the shortest time. You'll know as time goes by." Yi Feifei leaned back and listened to his words. It was unknown what he was thinking, but he didn't say anything. After a long while, she asked, "Have you been by Master's side for a long time?" "Yeah, it's been a long time." Du Fan smiled, as if recalling the scene when he first met Fengjiu. "When I met Master, she was even younger than you are now. Who would have thought that the decision he made back then would directly affect his entire life?" Many times, he rejoiced that the decision he made back then was the most correct one. The two of them chatted casually, and time passed by quickly. Du Fan hadn't rested much since they set off early in the morning. It wasn't until the sky darkened that he found a place to stop. He planned to rest for the night, and continue his journey tomorrow. The spirit deer carriage gradually ran down from the clouds and gradually slowed down. It wasn't until the purple gold spirit deer's hooves touched the ground that the carriage came down from the air and slowly moved on the ground. Dufan drove the carriage to a small village in front and back. He saw a village in midair, so he chose to stop here. Chapter 4105. Although the village was in a remote place, there were occasionally passers-by who came in to rest. Therefore, when the villagers who were cooking saw the spirit deer carriage coming in, they all poked their heads out to look. When they saw the two spirit deer, the villagers were a little surprised. They had seen people from big families using spirit beasts to pull their carriages, but it was rare to see a spirit deer pulling a carriage. Moreover, this spirit deer carriage looked very big, and the two spirit deer were also very beautiful. Some children saw the two spirit deer and ran out to look in amazement. They wanted to get close, but didn't dare to, so they just hid behind the adults and blinked their eyes. After entering the small village, Dufan stopped the spirit deer carriage. He whispered a few words and learned that the master was still cultivating. He said to Lung Shuang and Yi Fei Fei, "Lung Shuang is in the spirit deer carriage to guard the master. Fei Fei, come down with me." Then, he jumped down from the spirit deer carriage. Yi Fei Fei followed him down. She glanced at the small village and quickly walked to Dufan's side. Seeing that he came to the door of a house and asked, she also stopped. Seeing that the surrounding children were watching, she took out some candies from her space. "Come for you." She took out a handful of candies and spread them out in the palm of her hand. She smiled at the children. However, although the children were envious of the candies, they didn't dare to go forward. They just stared at the candies and then looked at Yi Fei Fei. One of the children was about 3 or 4 years old. He was still wearing open pants and his face was dirty. Because he was young, he didn't know fear, nor was he afraid of strangers. After seeing the candies, he walked forward and grabbed a handful of candies in front of Yi Fei Fei. He then smiled happily. "Silly child, come back." The child's parents saw it and couldn't help but be surprised. They shouted and came forward. They reached out to hit the child. "How can you take things casually? Quickly return them." "Big sister, it's okay. It's just some candies." Yi Fei Fei quickly stopped them so that the child wouldn't be hit. "Candy, mother, candy is sweet." The child didn't know when he ate a candy. The sweet taste made the child reveal a pure smile. He also handed the candy in his hand to his mother, indicating that his mother also ate one. The woman's face was slightly red. She was a little restrained and embarrassed. She looked at Yi Fei Fei and thanked. "Thank you, miss." "It's okay." Yi Fei Fei smiled. Seeing Dufan come back, she looked at him and asked, "How is it?" "Tonight, we will rest here for a night. Tomorrow," Dufan said, "it's just that they don't dare to come and get it." Yi Fei Fei said angrily and ignored him. Instead, he distributed the candies to the children. Yi Fei Fei looked at the children who took the candies and scattered, and the children's fathers who came out to thank her. Yi Fei Fei smiled widely. "Master is still cultivating. Wait for the owner of the house to prepare dinner. Then call for Master. As for now, don't disturb her," Dufan said. After giving her instructions, he walked towards the carriage. Chapter 4106. She entered the house that Dufan had asked about and saw a middle-aged couple inside. At this moment, the two of them were busy preparing food in the back. She walked up with a smile and said, "Uncle, Auntie, are you the only two people in your house?" She had looked around when she came in, and it seemed like there were only the two of them in the house. The woman looked back at her with a smile and said, "Yes, it's just the two of us here. Our son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren have all gone to the city. It's just the two of us who aren't used to life in the city, so we came back to live in the village." "Oh, I see that everyone in the village grows their own vegetables. Every household seems to have a vegetable field?" Yi Fei Fei asked as she looked through the kitchen window at the vegetable field that was growing well behind the house. "Yes, in the countryside, everyone grows their own vegetables. This way, we don't have to buy them. It's quite far from the city, so it's convenient." The woman busied herself as she helped her husband. The sound of things being chopped on the chopping board could be heard, making the house sound very lively. At this moment, the middle-aged man who was cooking turned around and revealed a simple and honest smile. He said, "Young lady, the food we just prepared is for the two of us. It's not enough, even if we add your portion. However, there are vegetables in the back of the house. Go and see what kind of vegetables you want to eat. You can pick some and cook them. We still have some preserved meat at home. It's just nice that we can steam it for you. It's all farmhouse food, so it can't be compared to the big restaurants in the city. However, it's still delicious," the woman said with a smile as she put a bowl of sliced preserved meat into the pot to steam. Hearing their words, Yi Fei nodded. "Okay, then I'll go take a look at the back of the house and pick some vegetables," she said with a smile as she turned around and walked forward, going from the front to the back. Du Fan was sitting in the spirit deer carriage, fanning himself with the fan in his hand. When he saw Yi Fei walk briskly towards the back of the house with a happy expression, he called out, "Yi Fei, where are you going?" "I'm going to the back to pick vegetables," Yi Fei said without looking back as she walked towards the back of the house. Du Fan heard her words and couldn't help but shake his head. He thought to himself, she really has nothing better to do after eating. They're already cooking, so why is she still running to the back to pick vegetables? In the spirit deer carriage, Fengjiu slowly exhaled and opened his eyes after smelling the aroma of the food. "Master," Lung Shuang called. Fengjiu lifted the curtain and looked outside, asking, "Where are we?" "It's a small village. We'll rest here tonight. Du Fan has already made arrangements. We'll stay at the house in front of us for the night. The food should be ready soon," Lung Shuang said as he got up and walked out. Hearing that, Fengjiu smiled. Farmer's food is the most delicious. Also, I think the environment here is very peaceful. Let's go. Let's go down and take a walk." She also got up and walked out. After getting off the carriage, she looked around. "Master," Du Fan called out from outside and told her the general situation. "Master, Lung Shuang, it's time to eat." Yi Fei poked her head out of the house and waved at them. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and walked forward with them. Chapter 4107. Fengjiu glanced at the villagers and revealed a smile. Then, he walked with Du Fan and the others towards Yi Fei's house. The head of the household and his wife placed the dishes on the table and stood to the side. When they saw Fengjiu and the others enter the house, they hurriedly went forward to greet them. "Quickly, sit down and eat. Otherwise, the dishes won't taste good when they get cold." After Fengjiu came in, he nodded slightly at the couple and smiled. "Sorry to disturb you. We can do this ourselves. You should also go and eat." Not at all. When the couple saw the extremely beautiful girl smiling at them, their faces also revealed smiles. The woman said, "You should eat. We'll go to the back courtyard to eat. If there isn't enough food, just call us. I'll cook 2 more dishes for you." "Okay." Fengjiu smiled and nodded. After watching the two of them walk to the back, he gestured to the others, "Everyone, sit down and eat." As soon as he finished, the others walked to the table and sat down. Yi Fei first picked up a bowl and scooped a bowl of soup for Fengjiu as she said, "Mistress, drink a bowl of fish soup first. I just tasted it and it's very fresh." "Okay," Fengjiu responded. After she scooped a bowl of soup for her, she scooped a bowl for Lung Shuang and then for herself. As for Du Fan, she left him to the side. Seeing this, a trace of a smile flashed across her eyes. Du Fan saw that she only scooped soup for the two of them and glanced at Yi Fei, saying, "Why don't I need it? Aren't you treating me too differently? You're a big man. Do you still need me to help you?" Yi Fei glanced at him and picked up the bowl to drink a mouthful of soup. When the fish soup entered her throat, she couldn't help but reveal a smile. "In any case, I'm considered half your master. Don't you know how to respect your master?" Du Fan raised his eyebrows and looked at her. "You just threw away the cultivation method and let me cultivate by myself. How can you be considered half a master?" Yi Fei curled his lips and picked up a mouthful of vegetables to eat. Seeing this, Du Fan shook his head and scooped a bowl of soup for himself. He smiled and squinted his eyes. "It's okay. We still have a long way to go. I'll find an opportunity to give you some pointers." Hearing the meaning of his words, Yi Fei's hand paused. She glanced at him and whispered, "I don't know if he's a man or not. He's so narrow-minded." Du Fan's mouth twitched when he heard this. After glancing at her inexplicably, he picked up the soup and drank it. Just as he had said, there would be plenty of opportunities to deal with her in the future. Feng Jiu and Lung Shuang observed their expressions and words as they ate. Feng Jiu's lips curved into a smile, as if he was watching a good show, while Lung Shuang's eyes flashed with a look of contemplation. At the dinner table, a few people occasionally chatted or praised which dish was delicious. When they were almost full, Yi Fei, who was sitting on the chair, could not help but pull his collar and fan his face with one hand. He said, "Why do I feel so hot?" As she said this, she looked at Du Fan and said, "Lend me your fan to fan myself. It's so hot." Hearing this, Feng Jiu and the other two looked at her and saw that her forehead was covered in sweat and her face was slightly red. She looked very hot, which surprised the three of them. Chapter 4108. Lung Shuang looked at her and said, "The weather is just right, and it's already late at night. Normally, even if you eat fast, you won't feel hot." In other words, he felt that her condition was a little strange. "But I really feel hot, so hot that it's unbearable," Yi Fei said. Because her body was very hot, her whole body and mood became a little dry. She took a deep breath and said, "I better go wash my face and get some fresh air. It's too hot." Just as she stood up and was about to walk out, Feng Jiu's voice came from the side. "Sit down and give me your hand." When Du Fan heard this, he couldn't help but look at Yi Fei. Seeing that she was certain that something was wrong, he said, "Master wants you to sit down and give me your hand. She will take a look at you." Yi Fei felt a little dizzy. She didn't know if it was because of the heat or something else, but the sound in her ears gradually became louder. She only saw Du Fan's mouth opening and closing, but she didn't know what he was saying. Her eyes gradually became blurry. She felt very hot. Her body was very hot. It was so hot that even her whole body was swaying. She tugged at her collar and swallowed her saliva. She felt very thirsty, very thirsty. Du Fan saw that she was still standing there in a daze and was pulling at her collar. He said, "Why are you still standing there? Master wants you to sit down and give me your hand." "So thirsty, I'm so thirsty. Do you have any water?" Her voice became a little hoarse, and her face became redder. Her hair was wet with sweat, and a few strands of hair by her ears were soaked with sweat. Du Fan looked at her and frowned. He stood up and walked forward and put his hand on her shoulder. "Your condition doesn't seem right. Sit down. Master will take a look at you." Before he finished speaking, his whole body froze in place. His eyes widened, and he looked at the woman who suddenly pounced on him and bit his lips with all her might. Because of this unexpected scene and her unexpected action, no matter how fast Du Fan's reaction was, he was still stunned at that moment. His entire body froze on the spot, and his eyes were wide open as he stared unwaveringly at Yi Fei. Because of this moment of distraction, when he recovered and wanted to push her away, who knew that she would bite his lips? Between the push and pull, he was in so much pain that he broke out in a cold sweat. "Let go!" His face was ashen as he shouted. However, his lips were bitten and the words that came out of his mouth were unclear. They did not have the slightest bit of power. Feng Jiu and Lung Shuang were watching this scene. Feng Jiu was shocked as he saw Yi Fei hugging Du Fan. She was biting his lips with all her might. Du Fan was unable to push him, and he was in pain cold. Puffed. After recovering from her shock, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. Even Lung Shuang, who was beside her, smiled at this funny scene. Du Fan was in so much pain that he gasped. He felt that his lips had been bitten. Just as he was about to hit Yi Fei to knock her out, her hands suddenly came to his waist and pulled on his belt. He was so shocked that his face changed, and he quickly protected his belt with both hands to prevent her from pulling it off. So hot, so hot. "Master!" Du Fan had no other choice and could only look at Feng Jiu for help. Chapter 4109. As soon as Feng Jiu finished speaking, Lung Shuang knocked Yi Fei unconscious with a slap. She groaned and fell onto Du Fan's body. Du Fan's face flushed red. He wanted to push Yi Fei away, but when he saw that she had fainted and could not even stand properly, she would definitely fall to the ground if he pushed her away. Thus, he could only reach out to support her. He looked at Feng Jiu and asked, "Master, was she drugged?" Looking at the situation, it was as if she had eaten ecstasy. She pounced and bit him as soon as she came up, and even tried to pull his belt. Thinking of this, his face changed and he felt his lips go numb. Feng Jiu coughed lightly and looked at the two of them. It seems like it, but how could she have been drugged in this place? The couple, who had heard the commotion, came to the front. When they heard them say that they had been drugged, they hurriedly came out and said, "We are all good people. We have never harmed anyone. We would never drug you." Feng Jiu smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry, I know it wasn't you. There was no problem with the food, and they were only villagers. There was no reason for them to drug Yi Fei Fei." Hearing Feng Jiu's words, the couple breathed a sigh of relief. Knowing that they were not suspected, they were relieved. "Can we trouble you to bring us to the room where we can rest?" Feng Jiu looked at the woman and asked. Yes, it's here. Follow me." The woman quickly said and led them to the back courtyard. Feng Jiu walked in front, and Lung Shuang followed. Du Fan, who was at the back, could only carry Yi Fei Fei and follow. When they reached the back courtyard, Du Fan put Yi Fei Fei on the bed. Feng Jiu went forward to check her pulse. He could not help but raise his eyebrows. Du Fan saw that she did not speak, so he asked, "Master, what's wrong with her?" Feng Jiu withdrew his hand and took out a silver needle, saying she probably ate the love pea and then drank the crucian carp soup tonight. The combination of the two made an extremely powerful ecstasy. As she spoke, she said to Lung Shuang, "Prepare a bucket of cold water and soak her in it. I'll give her acupuncture to force the drug out of her body." "Yes," Lung Shuang replied and walked out to ask the woman to prepare the bathtub. Du was speechless. Why would she eat the love pea? She dares to eat something she doesn't know about. How careless is this girl? Feng Jiu smiled. The love pea is eaten by children in the countryside as a wild fruit. It's small and red and has a sweet and sour taste. It's very popular. Usually, as long as it's not crucian carp soup, it won't be used as a drug. It's also fine to drink crucian carp soup after eating the love pea. Unfortunately, she didn't have enough time to digest the love pea and drink crucian carp soup. That's why she became like this. I can only say that she's very unlucky. Hearing this, Du Fan looked at the unconscious Yi Fei Fei, who was sweating profusely on the bed. Her face was red and her lips were cracked. He paused and could not help but ask, "Is the combination of the two very powerful? Don't we have a pill to neutralize the ecstasy? Why don't we give her one?" Chapter 41:10. Hearing this, Du Fan looked at Yi Fei Fei and said, "Then I'll go help you get the water." Saying this, he turned around and walked out. Feng Jiu prepared the silver needles and looked at the unconscious Yi Fei Fei on the bed. He thought of the scene between her and Du Fan and couldn't help but smile and whisper, "Sometimes fate begins with an ill-fated relationship." Not long after the cold water was prepared, Du Fan went outside to keep watch. Lung Shuang entered the room and said, "Master, the water is ready. Come and help carry her over." Feng Jiu said and asked Lung Shuang to come forward. "Yes." Lung Shuang responded and went forward to help Yi Fei Fei up. He went to the bathtub and took off her clothes, soaking her whole body in the water. The water at night was slightly cold, especially the water in a mountain village like this. It was even more refreshing because it was spring water in the mountains. Once Yi Fei Fei was soaked in the water, even though she was unconscious, her whole body couldn't help but tremble. "Hold her. Don't let her sink into the water," Feng Jiu said and took the silver needles from the side and began to insert them into her body. When a few silver needles were slowly inserted into the acupuncture points on her head, Feng Jiu fed her a medicinal pill. At the same time, he used his spiritual power to help her force the medicine out of her body. Lung Shuang supported the unconscious Yi Fei Fei to prevent her whole body from sliding into the water. He watched as his master used his spiritual power to help her force the medicine out of her body. At the place where the silver needles were inserted into Yi Fei Fei's head, a trace of white smoke slowly rose. Outside, Du Fan, who was standing guard in the courtyard, was pacing back and forth. He felt inexplicably irritable. Inadvertently, he touched his lips that were bitten. Thinking of the scene from before, his ears became slightly hot, but he cursed in a low voice. Are you a dog? Biting people when you catch them. After a long time, the door creaked open and Fengjiu walked out. Seeing that he was still standing guard in the courtyard, and seeing that his lips were bitten, he couldn't help but smile and say, Go and rest. It's fine here. Du Fan looked into the room and asked, Master, is her medicine cured? She's still soaked in the water, but it's not a big deal. It's just that Lung Shuang hit her a bit too hard, and she's still unconscious. Saying this, she couldn't help but smile. I think that palm strike was too light. If it were me, she definitely wouldn't wake up until tomorrow. Du Fan said. When he thought of his lips being bitten, his face turned green and red. All right, you should go and rest. I'm tired after driving all day. Let's take a rest and continue tomorrow at noon. Feng Nine smiled and motioned him to go back to his room to rest. Call me if you need anything. I'll be in this room. He pointed at one of the rooms and said, then walked towards it. After watching him go into the room, Fengjiu walked around the courtyard. Looking at the starry night sky, she took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. She secretly wondered if the two children were looking for her. Thinking of this, she secretly shook her head. This wasn't the first time she had left her children's side. They should be used to her absence by now. After walking around the courtyard for a while, she returned to her room and gave Lung Shuang a few instructions before going to another room to rest. The next morning, Yi Feifei sneezed in her bed. She rubbed her nose and opened her eyes. She felt that her entire body was sore and her head was heavy. When she sat up, she looked down and saw that she was only wearing an undergarment. Chapter 41:11. What's wrong with me? She murmured, trying hard to remember, but she couldn't remember what was wrong with her. She only vaguely remembered that she was very hot, and then she didn't know what happened. You're awake? Lung Shuang walked in, holding a bowl of black medicine in his hand. Lung Shuang, what's wrong with me? What are you holding in your hand? It can't be for me to drink, right? She looked at the bowl of black medicine in her hand, and her delicate little face wrinkled into a bitter expression. Lung Shuang glanced at her, then came to the bedside and handed the medicine in his hand to her. Master asked me to make this for you. Drink it since you're awake. Achoo! Yi Feifei suddenly sneezed, and her body felt cold. She couldn't help but wrap herself in the quilt and rub her nose. You've been soaking in cold water all night. Drink the medicine quickly. As he spoke, he handed the bowl of medicine in his hand to her again. Seeing this, Yi Feifei reached out and took it. Smelling the herbal smell, she couldn't help but frown bitterly. She held her breath and drank the medicine in one breath, then asked, Lung Shuang, how did I end up soaking in cold water all night? What's wrong with me? I was fine yesterday. Hearing this, Lung Shuang looked at her strangely. You don't remember? Seeing his strange expression, Yi Feifei's heart jumped. I don't remember. Did I do something I shouldn't have done? You can ask Du Fan about this. Lung Shuang said with a faint smile, then turned and walked out. Ask Du Fan? Why do I have to ask Du Fan? Yi Feifei murmured with a puzzled expression. She got up and washed up, then put on her clothes and walked out of the room. As soon as she walked out, she saw the door opposite her open. Du Fan walked out, half of his face covered with a fan. When he saw her, he glanced at her, but didn't even greet her and walked towards the front yard. Seeing this, she hurriedly shouted, Wait, I have something to ask you. As she spoke, she quickly walked forward. Stop! Du Fan shouted, pointing at her with one hand, the other hand still covering half of his face with the fan. Don't come any closer. Yi Feifei was stunned and said, What? I'm not going to eat you. I just want to know what happened to me yesterday. Why did Lung Shuang tell me to ask you? Also, what time are we leaving today? Du Fan glanced at her and said sarcastically, You have the nerve to ask, but I don't have the nerve to answer. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked forward and said, Master said to leave at noon. Don't follow me. Also, from today onwards, stay away from me. Who are you? Weird and bad-tempered, and waving that stupid fan all day. Do you think I like you? Even if you didn't tell me, I would stay away from you. She muttered to herself, but when she turned around, she was startled by Fengjiu, who had been standing behind her for some time. She took a step back and patted her chest as she sighed. "Master, how come you don't make any sound when you walk? You gave me a fright." Fengjiu smiled and glanced at her, then glanced at Du Fan, who was walking in front of them, and laughed lightly. "I just came out. You were so focused on Du Fan that you didn't notice me." As she spoke, she walked to a bench and sat down. She asked, "How are you feeling today?" Chapter 41:12. Hearing her question, Fengjiu recalled the scene from last night and couldn't help but smile. "When you went to the back of the house to pick vegetables yesterday, did you eat acacia seeds?" Yi Fei was startled. "Acacia seeds? What's that? I didn't eat it." "It's a type of wild fruit. It's small, only the size of a finger and red in color," Fengjiu said slowly with a smile in his eyes. Hearing this, Yi Fei suddenly understood and slapped her head. "Oh, Master was talking about that." There were indeed some in the back of the house. A few children were picking them and eating them. Then they passed some to me and said it was sweet and sour. I tasted some, and it was quite appetizing. "Quite appetizing?" Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at her, chuckling. "It was quite appetizing, but the after effects were a bit strong." "What after effects?" Yi Fei asked in confusion. "After eating the acacia seeds, you drank the crucian carp soup. When the two were mixed together, it became an extremely powerful aphrodisiac." Fengjiu pursed his lips as he spoke. Seeing her expression change, he said softly, "That's why you soaked in cold water last night. I also used silver needles to help you force the drug out, so it's not a big problem. However, in the future, you can't eat anything outside. Some things alone won't have an effect, but if eaten together with other things, it will become a very powerful drug, or even a deadly poison." Hearing this, Yi Fei's eyes were filled with fear. She took a deep breath and said with relief, "Fortunately, I was with Master, or else it would have been over." "Master." Du Fan walked over. When he saw Fengjiu, he put away his fan and bowed to her, greeting her. As soon as he closed his fan, he heard Yi Fei's surprised voice. What happened to your mouth?" Yi Fei looked at Du Fan's slightly swollen lips that were covered by the fan. There was even medicine on the broken skin. She suddenly had a strange expression on her face. No wonder this guy always used a fan to cover his mouth. So he bit his lips? However, it didn't look like he bit himself. It would have been better if she hadn't mentioned it. The moment she did, Du Fan's face darkened. He cast a sidelong glance at her and was about to speak when he heard his master's voice carrying a hint of laughter and ridicule. "Fei, his lips were bitten by you. How can you deny it after kissing and biting him?" Fengjiu said lightly, looking at the two of them as if he was watching a good show. "Well, what?" Yi Fei was petrified after hearing her words. He stared at Du Fan's lips in disbelief. "I bit you? Hiss. This was impossible. How could I do something worse than a beast?" Du Fan sneered and said snappily, "You also know that I'm worse than a beast. You're just a pretty boy who holds a lousy fan all day long. How desperate would I have to be to eat you?" Yi Fei glared at him. Looking at his ashen face, he quickly came to Fengjiu's side. "Master, you're joking, right? How could I let this bastard take advantage of me?" Fengjiu listened to the two of them and couldn't help but laugh. She glanced at the ashen Du Fan and then at Yi Fei, who had a look of disdain. She chuckled and said, "Didn't I say it earlier? You were drugged with an aphrodisiac. That's why you did something like that."